never mind. There we go.
Ready? Good evening, Kershaw County. Everyone here online and in the audience. This is our regularly scheduled County Council meeting for Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. I call this meeting to order. Mr. Bobby Gary, will you take the podium, please, and open us in prayer?
Let us pray. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. We would like to thank you this day, Father, for allowing life, health, and strength, Father. Father God, we ask that the Spirit of God dwell amongst us, Father, as we do the works of the county business. Father God, we also ask for salvation to the ones that are unsaved, Father, in this county and throughout this country. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
And thank you, sir. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, adoption of tonight's agenda. Is there a motion to adopt this agenda?
Make a motion, Madam Chair, to adopt the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Tucker has the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Tomlinson with the second. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Mr. Shoemaker?
I did have Madam Chair, I did have a matter that I wanted to bring up in executive session, but, I mean, obviously I'll make that motion, but I noticed that it wasn't on the agenda, so I don't know if we needed to amend the agenda to note that, or maybe we can ask for a legal.
No, we don't. We can have an executive session at any time. So when it's appropriate, just make the motion. Thank you. All right, all those in favor of accepting tonight's agenda as is, indicate by raising your hand. And the vote is unanimous. This agenda is approved. Moving on to proclamations. We have one proclamation tonight honoring St. Matthew Baptist Church, and Mr. Bobby Gary is here from that church. And Mr. Gary, I'm so sorry that I missed y'all's event on Saturday. The proclamation reads, whereas St. Matthew Baptist Church exists to glorify God and proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ our Savior, to preach the good news of the same saving death and victorious resurrection of Jesus Christ, so that all who believe will be saved, and to baptize them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. And whereas St. Matthew Baptist Church's vision is to be a transformed community of disciples committed to sharing God's love and seeing transformation by the grace of God. They aim to be part of a growing church family that is focused on each member's spiritual, emotional, and physical growth. And whereas at St. Matthew's Baptist Church, their mission is to save souls by glorifying God, to spread His holy word, to support fellow believers, and to be a guiding light for the community. And whereas St. Matthew's Baptist Church was founded by former slaves in 1873 in Lugoff, South Carolina. A building was not available, so worship services were held outdoors with the slaves from Bell Plantation under Bush Arbor. Later in that same year, Mr. Gordon Bell and Mr. Grady Bell granted the worshipers 2 acres of land for a building and burial ground. A church was built with services being held each Sunday and prayer services being held during the week. The old church is located approximately 1 mile from the present location of the church. And whereas St. Matthew's Baptist Church is celebrating the sesquicentennial anniversary of the church in May 2023. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Kershaw County Council acknowledges and recognizes St. Matthew's Baptist Church on its sesquicentennial 150th anniversary for its many contributions and accomplishments in Kershaw County and in the state of South Carolina, and extends its congratulations on this historic occasion. Signed by Kershaw County Council this 9th day of May, 2023. All those in favor of accepting the proclamation indicate by, is there a motion to?
Yeah. Make a motion that we approve. A proclamation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. And Mr. Shoemaker's second. Is there any discussion?
very proud, Bobby, to be a part of this resolution or proclamation. And I want to just say, you're looking good these days. Councilman.
Again, Mr. Gary, thank you, and thank you for bringing this to our attention and including us on this special occasion. Anything else?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I just want to say to former Councilman Bobby Gary, congratulations too. I was just making sure she was reading this. She didn't say St. Matthew United Methodist, which is my church, so we'll make sure they get it right. But we've already celebrated 150 years. We're clocking a little older than you guys. But congratulations to you and your church family, and continue to do what you do in the community. I know y'all have a lot of programs over that church where you feed and do different things in the community, and very proud of you guys. Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of approving this proclamation honoring St. Matthew's Baptist Church indicate by raising your hand. And the vote is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Gary. Do we have Councilman Brazel on the phone? Okay. Councilman Brazel, can you hear us? Yes, we can. Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
unfortunately, we're experiencing more technical difficulty with the live stream, so they're going to continue to work on it, but regardless, we'll have it recorded and
Okay.
ASAP. So
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gary, do you want to take a photo? Okay. Well, we normally do that, so I wanted to ask you. All right, we're up to number 6 on our agenda, public comments. Thank you, Mr. DeBose. We have 2 speakers tonight. The first speaker is Mr. Tom Webb III. Hey, Tom. Yes, so we're going to try something new tonight with the timer, okay? We'll have the timer on the screen, and Ryan, does it make a noise at the end of 5 minutes? Okay. Okay.
No.
It doesn't sound like it.
Is it turned on?
Testing? Yeah. All right. Seems like council is still considering spending an awful lot of money on a sports complex. And I want to speak to that a little bit. My title to this rant is Bread and Circuses. When Rome was getting shaky, they tried bread and circuses to manage the people, to distract the people. Free food and games. Lions and tigers and bears and gladiators and a few Christians thrown in. Shall we spend millions of dollars on game complexes and pretend that heroes play there? Is that what we want for heroes? Our children growing up to think that somebody who bounces a ball or hits one with a bat is a hero. Well, it's great for kids to get some exercise, but how much is enough? Is that question I keep asking. You can go too far with most anything. There's not much left of Rome these days, but majestic ruins, the Colosseum, for instance, a monument to big mistakes. And do you know what else Rome did? They hired foreigners who had no respect for old Roman values. The foreigners sacked Rome. They turned against Rome. And we here in Kershaw County have hired what looked to me like foreigners for the comprehensive plan, the team, they call it. There's one pretty little girl. The rest of them look like, I don't know where they come from, but they don't come from Kershaw County. So they're supposed to help with our comprehensive plan. And I wonder how much they like our Bill of Rights, free speech, free thought, private property, gun rights, free market, individualism, and American history. My guess is anybody from way up there in the frozen north that look like they do probably don't give a darn about us.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. Right, the next speaker is Jeff Maddox. Hey, Jeff.
Let's see if I can get this mic right. I got some notes today. Years ago, 2007, 2008, when the great financial crisis started and all, that's when I began my journey into the realm of politics. And over those years, I was instrumental in building one of the largest tea parties in South Carolina. On a regular basis, we had between 200 and 300 people at our tea party meetings every week. We were getting involved pretty good. You may remember when the Obama administration went after tea parties, you know, the IRS went after them and all, you know, if you signed up as a nonprofit and all. One of the things I advocated was that we didn't sign up, that we didn't become any kind of known to government, permissioned by government entity. We kept all our money, any donations, in a damn shoebox. That's how we did it. And we'd have an open ledger of what we were spending and not. We didn't report anything. This is America. During that same time, I got a call from the Fusion Center, a colonel. And she asked me about the Tea Party. You know, at that time, they were calling us domestic terrorists and that kind of thing. And I told her, look here, if you think we're domestic terrorists and the average age of my Tea Party is 65, we got a problem. Over those years, I was targeted by the sheriff. I was tied to sovereign citizens, and I was attacked by both the Republican and Democrat parties. Back then, it was Chad Conley and Dick Harpootlian that came after me for speaking truth to power. I've been called all kinds of names. I was attacked on the mainstream media. WIS did stories of me and played the little sovereign citizen thing of shooting cops and all kinds of craziness. So I've been through it. I've been involved in Senate campaigns, U.S. Senate campaigns against Flimsy Graham. And I saw the inner workings of the political game. And it's a dirty, dirty, filthy game, this game of politics. Moneyed interest, old families, and political puppets. Plans are made behind closed doors, in card games, and backroom and backdoor parties. These plans, they creep up in the political realm, and they're played in little committees and all, and the public is unaware of these things until poof, the idea is floated out there in trial balloon, and then you start getting people coming up and advocating for these things when the plan has been laid long ago. And such is this recreation plan. We smelled of it a number of years ago. And now we're seeing the fruition of it. And now we're looking at, up in the State House, there's a $1.5 million proposal for a YMCA in Kershaw County. It's just interesting to me how these coincidences keep coming together at the same time. The people don't have a voice for this. No, that plan's been laid long ago. That's all talk. That's all propaganda. We know that now. I've been in the game too long. I've become cynical at it. But as Jefferson said, we should have a revolution every generation. And that's what I advocate for. because the system is so corrupted. The system is so bureaucratic. The system is so twisted that we've got to cut it off all the heads of Medusa's snakes. I advocate for a complete and total tax revolt. Let's start over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maddox. All right, that concludes public comments for tonight. Now we will move into a public hearing. The public hearing will be on an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to a fee agreement by and between Kershaw County, South Carolina, and Camphor Southern Pine Incorporated as sponsor, and New South Lumber Company Incorporated and New South Camden Properties LLC as sponsor affiliates to provide an extension of the investment period and other matters related thereto. We'll open the public hearing now.
I didn't even think about this public hearing, but it kind of goes in line with what I was just saying. Government is picking winners and losers all the time now. Government interferes in what is not the free market. You look at the medical industry and the rules and regulations there. You look at the comprehensive planning that has to go on. You look at fees and lieu and all kinds of deals and public-private partnerships and all the incestuous intertwining that the government does. And I hear a lot of people say, you know, that's just the way it is. It's always been this way. Yeah, I suppose it's true, because even after the Constitution, these games were played about picking winners and losers. Back then, it was massive chunks of property. And the debasing of the currency, and the veterans of the Revolutionary War had to sell their scrip for near nothing when speculators came in. Then they lobbied Congress, and Congress gave them on par. So they would make thousands of % by speculating and then lobbying the government to get things done. And that's what happens here, because you see these companies come in and they're looking for the best deals. Look at, who was it, F&N recently, you know, the fee and lieu agreement didn't pass and all, and so they were already in negotiations with Pickens County to get their little slice. And so we're left with these little municipalities and all trying to outbid who's going to pick a winner and loser and who's going to give the most and all, when it's not government's job. The free market would decide for itself, had it not been for government sticking their nose in the business that we don't have any use in. It's kind of like this comprehensive planning thing where it comes down from Mount High that we have to do these things, and they give you a criteria where you got to cover environment and blah, 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 blah. Why can't we just write on there, we're going to try to be the freest county in South Carolina and maybe in the nation. We're going to rely on the free market. We're going to do something a little bit different than what's done before. Because like I've said to you guys before, I can't find anything that, it's well-intentioned, yes, but I can't find anything that's turned out well. When we look at the nation's $33 trillion in debt. And yet we keep playing these games and pushing wars and comprehensive planning and all. To what end? To what end? So I know this agreement's just an extension and everything, and I know you guys are going to do it and all. And I can't say as I blame you. But it's something that we need to think about. What is the fundamental function of government, and what does it mean to freedom? We're not free. We tout it, we pledge allegiance, we sing the songs, we do all that, but hell no, we're not free. And I want freedom for my kids. I want them for her grandkids and his grandkids and Jimmy's and yours. I want them for everybody. But the only way we're going to do it is government has got to get smaller. It's got to. And it's going to, one way, shape, form, or another. And until people step up and say, we're going to do the hard thing, we're going to start cutting this thing back before it destroys every bit of freedom that we were promised in 1776 with the Declaration of Independence. I don't know what else to say anymore. I mean, the people might be waking up a little bit, but they're scared to speak. They have no voice. They're intimidated by their own government. You know, I go harken back to what Jesus did when the bankers got into the temple and he whipped them. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Maddox. Any other speakers for the public hearing? Mr. Robert Bird. Do you go by Bob?
Bob.
Hi, Bob. Thank you for being here tonight. Tell us where you're from.
I'm have a residence here in Camden on Ladford Lane, and I'm the plant manager of the Canfor Southern Pine Mill here.
Okay.
Just a few things I wanted to share with y'all. When we talk about trees and forestry and all these things, we practice sustainable forestry. We've done that for years. Our products are stamped with an SFI stamp, which ensures that we're managing our forest correctly, and we plant more trees every year than we cut, so make sure that supply is sustainable. And we use 100% of the trees that are brought into the mill. We sell all kinds of byproducts, bark, sawdust, shavings from planer, and some of that we use for fuel to heat our dry kilns. We use the green sawdust for a couple of kilns, and we use bark and sawdust for the other ones that runs our boiler. We process probably 18 to 20,000 tons of logs a week, which translates to about 600 to 700 truckloads of logs. We also employ 200 people at our mill, and we have some projects that we're working on now, smaller projects, but we have another big project coming up the first part of next year. We've already made a purchase order for that, for a new green sorter to go on our sawmill, which will pretty much complete all the work we wanted to do on the sawmill. And that's probably about a $10 million investment when we get through with that. And then after that, we have a couple of more dry kilns we need to build and some other smaller type projects that we'll be working on. So the original agreement that we had was for $35 million. We probably spent approximately $70 million so far, which has really made a big difference in our production rates and our reliability in Camden. We're trying to get, my goal is to get Camden in a place to where it's will be in good shape for the next 10 to 15 to 20 years and be a sustainable workplace for our employees, and they'll have steady, reliable jobs. And we've done a lot of work around pay and benefits. We have excellent benefits, and we're constantly looking at that, trying to improve that. So I brought a short video that'll kind of show the process of what we do and how we do it and some of the improvements we put in. It's about 5 or 6 minutes, and after that, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bird. Ryan, do you have the video? Okay.
Got old ears up here.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd, for that video. That's cool.
If I may,
Yes, Mr. Jones.
I just want to say thank you for one. What a great way to tour your facility without having to leave our seats. I'm very impressed. You've been good partners with Kershaw County from the very beginning, and we thank you for all your investments and what you mean to us here. Thank you so much.
Any other speakers for the public hearing? Right, with that, I will close the public hearing. Item number 8, approval of minutes. This is for the Tuesday, April 25th, regularly scheduled meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Madam Chair, make a motion we approve the April 25th minutes.
Okay, Mr. Tucker makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Tomlinson. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to thank Ms. Hannah for the minutes. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Ms. Hannah, you are very thorough. Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes from Tuesday, April 25th, indicate by raising your hand. And is Mr. Brazel still on the line? Mr. Brazel? Okay. So it's, all those in favor are Mr. Cato, Mr. Tomlinson, Mr. Jones, myself, Mr. Shoemake, and Mr. Tucker, and absent is Mr. Brazel. Right, those meeting minutes are approved, and Ms. Hannah will put them on the website for everyone. Number 9, discussion item tonight. I'm going to hand it over to the county administrator to introduce, but this is the Kershaw County Impact Fee Study that's been discussed for years now, and Mr. Noonkester is here. He is the study consultant. So I will hand it over to you, Danny.
Madam Chair, members of council, this has been an ongoing process with looking at what an impact fee would do for Kershaw County. There's a lot of rules and regulations to it. It only allows us to spend money from this effort on expansion, not current services or anything like that, but Matt will certainly shed some light on that. But it would involve a fee on all new construction. Unfortunately, we're not able to parse out major development from minor development from an individual building a house. So any house being built, this fee would apply to. But with that, I will turn it over to Matt. I think he has some slides as well, and let him just give you all a 10,000-foot view. Now, this process is still ongoing. It's going to go before the Planning Commission to let them look at it, and so it still has several steps to go through. But again, Matt is here just to give you all kind of a high-level view of what this would be.
Okay, thank you.
While he comes up, could we get a copy of the report and these slides emailed to us?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And Mr. Templer, what goes before the Planning Commission? This presentation that we're getting?
It would be the study, the study that he has. We've received a study back in his report, his official report. So, and he can walk y'all through the specific steps.
Okay. Hi, Matt. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. Okay, well, as mentioned, my name is Matt Noonkester. I own a firm called City Explain Incorporated.
Mr. Noonkester, you'll have to speak into the mic. You can take it off if you'd like.
Sorry, I was born a
That's okay.
soft talker. Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Matt Noonkester. I own a firm called City Explain Incorporated. We are hired to be an extension of staff to do what I'll call at this point a proof of concept for a development impact fee study that would comply with state law. And so for this evening, kind of as working off of the opening that was given, I consider this more of a briefing and more of a conversation. If and when you decide to move forward, we'll do a formal presentation where we have to check certain boxes under state law to say that we've looked at certain things, you'll make a certain type of motion, all that kind of stuff. But for today, I really just want to set the table for these documents that we've submitted so that when you read them, you kind of have some things to look for. Because frankly, they're a little bit thick, and they need to be to comply with state law and give the information needed if we ever had to go to court. But at the same time, I want to give you the highlights so when you read them, you'll know what to look for. So I did put a couple of slides together, so if you could go ahead and do the next advance for me. I've got 5 quick things here. It'll be an introduction that we'll start with, and I'm just going to kind of run through the who, what, where, when, and why of impact fees for you. So again, by way of introduction, next slide, please. South Carolina has both the blessing and the curse of having state legislation that guides how an impact fee study needs to be done. It's a blessing in that there are states around the country that would love to have the opportunity to think about an impact fee, even if they decide not to do it. It's a curse in that there are a lot of requirements that need to be met in order to implement and maintain an impact fee. So when we're talking about these, again, as I was mentioning in the opening, these are fees that are put forth to new development only. So new development that comes in, that pulls a building permit and wants to construct and invest within the county, from whatever date you adopt your ordinance, would then have to pay an impact fee. Any existing development that's on the books right now, or anything that already has a building permit in place but is not yet finished, would not be subject to the impact fee.
Matt, what is considered a development?
So there's actually a definition within the state law on that, and it would be any type of investment that would be made. There are some exclusions, like if you replace something that's burnt down, or if you expand an existing use, but it's not detrimental to the supporting infrastructure. Residential development, if you add a basketball court or a tiny house, or accessory dwelling unit, or whatever they're calling it these days, those kind of things, there are some exemptions for. There's also specific exemptions for schools and volunteer fire departments, and affordable housing if you decide to go that route as well.
But it's a single-family home is considered a development?
Correct.
Just one house, okay.
Yes. And not only that, it would be a single-family detached home, a mobile home, an apartment, a town, everything. And again, we had to prepare the study and would have to go through the process following the South Carolina Development Impact Fee Act. So I'll refer to the word act quite a bit. That just means state law for this evening. Next slide. So what are impact fees and why would you want to use them? They work or are most well received in communities that have a lot of growth pressure coming on, but they want to pass the cost of new development on to those who are coming to the county in this case versus the existing residents that are here right now. And so it's a way to make sure that you collect at least a portion of the impacts that new development has as they move into Kershaw County. I just want to be very specific if we get into conversation later. The Act says that a city or a county has the authority to collect an impact fee. We'll get into what that means if you're an enterprise fund or a special district fire, or a special tax district fire provider, something of that nature. There's additional provisions that need to be put in if you want to go down that road. But specifically in the law, it says if you're a city or a county, you have the authority to collect these fees. And you have to pass what's called a rational nexus test, which basically means that the person or the thing that is creating the burden is the one who should pay a proportionate share of solving that burden. And again, there are growing interests all across South Carolina. If you go to the next slide, I'll continue here, but I actually have a map where you can see who's been doing it lately. These do work when you have land available for development, again, because new growth has to come in and pay for this. And in places where you have resistance to increased taxes, or you're having funding shortfalls with your budgets and things, a lot of people talk about development impact fees in that context. So this is a map of other jurisdictions within South Carolina that are collecting impact fees at this time. The green dots are ones where they've already done it. I just put the 2 white dots in there to remind myself to mention, as you go through this process, the city of Camden is also considering impact fees. And I'm actually doing that study, and I'll be meeting with them next week. But just so if you hear conversations in both directions, I want you to know that Camden is also looking at an impact fee at this time.
Is it like, I know certain kinds of taxes, if Camden does an impact fee, would that be exclusive to Camden and to the exclusion of us? Or if you build a new house in Camden, we passed it, Camden passes it, you pay 2 impact fees or just the 1?
You just pay the 1.
If we voted on our impact fee first, would we cover the county, or could Camden come in after that and do theirs?
There's a provision in the law that we would have to work out how, like, I'm presuming you're thinking of like an annexation agreement or something?
Well, I'm just thinking, like, if we're first to the table, if we pass a countywide impact fee, does that negate Camden's ability to do it? Or can they do it and sort of take that impact fee from us?
They can't take it from you. You have to apply it only where your jurisdiction applies. And so I have a slide coming up where it'll say, basically, unincorporated Kershaw County is where we're doing our study.
Okay, so it's similar to like an H tax, where it
Yes.
would be, I got you. Okay.
Yep, good concept. That's a good analogy.
Tammy taught me about that.
Great, great. And I come here not as a proponent, just I have an education on impact fees, so I always like to tell you the good and the bad. So those two circles you see with Berkeley County and Dorchester County, I actually did their impact fee studies years ago, and they elected to unwind it, and they went the sales tax route. So, it's not that impact fees are for everyone, and you have to have eyes wide open as you go through. And as we continue down this path together, we can talk about the pros and cons and what the different experiences were of these jurisdictions. And so, again, just sometimes because a picture's worth 1,000 words for me, you see here just a development from anywhere in the country. And if you click the next one, you'll see that everywhere that there's a rooftop right now, I've put a red dot on top of it. If you were to enact an impact fee today, all of those homes in red would have already been built and would not be subject to the impact fee. Next slide. But even if you've already approved a development, a major development, but they haven't pulled their building permits yet, those homes or those businesses would be required to come in under the development impact fee. So the reason I bring that up is a lot of people think very strategically about when you pass your ordinance, what is your effective date? Because if you make it tomorrow, a lot of people weren't counting on that in their performas and the like. Or if you put it too far out, you're going to get a rush of permits that come in who are trying to beat the fee. So it's very strategic on what date you pick in terms of your effective date. So again, you can have the same neighborhood where some of the homes paid an impact fee and some of the homes did not pay an impact fee, and it all comes down to when you enable this and implement it. All right, so just a few requirements of the act. If you can go to the next slide. As you go through here, there are very specific provisions within state law for what impact fees can be used for and not used for. So they can be used for anything that increases capacity to serve new development. So I get these questions all over the state, and they say, can you use impact fees for this? I say, well, are we increasing capacity? Let's go through that exercise and see if the answer is yes. If it is, it might be eligible for impact fees. Once it does increase capacity, you can use it for all phases of bringing that project online. The design and engineering, if you have to do land acquisition, the construction, utility relocation, you can even use it for the financing of that specific project. But the law is also very clear on what you can't use it for. So once that improvement's brought online or any existing infrastructure you have right now, you cannot use this money to maintain it. You can't pay any administrative costs to have this program and any of the operating costs that come with it. So I tell the joke all the time that I can probably find a grant to get you a bus, but the real commitment is if you're going to operate the bus from here till forever, that money would not be covered by an impact fee. You'd have to find a way to operate and maintain that bus as you went forward. Once you collect this money, it has to go into an interest-bearing account, so you would just have this money sitting, waiting for the project that's needed. It must be spent within 3 years of the scheduled improvement date within the project list. This is what got Berkeley County in trouble a little bit, was they were saving for an interchange, but they didn't get development fast enough to buy an interchange within 3 years. So if you do go forward with this, you're going to want to have a list of projects that are small, medium, and large, so that if you need to spend the money, you can spend it on something. You would have to do an annual monitoring report and report on what you've spent the money on each year. And you would have to update this plan, and usually the fallback is to do it every 5 years when you review your comprehensive plan. And then if you wanted to charge any higher fees or different fees or that nature, you would have to update the study to support that increase. Next, please. Yeah. And then there are 4 specific documents or things, if you use the official term, that need to be created. So the first is the justification report. You can have a copy of that now. We've turned that in. It's about 85 pages, but about 60 of it's appendices. Again, we just need to be prepared to go to court if we have to. So we want to show that we've done a very thorough study. But this is what I kind of call the adult book report. So this is where we have documented everything you have now, what shape it's in, what it's worth, so we can understand what the maximum allowable impact fee might be based on your existing assets. Number two is something that's in process. We need to still work with staff to finalize a list of capital projects that we would want to consider and eligible for funding. So that's something that would need to be done before this briefing became a formal presentation. Number three is a study of how these impact fees affect housing affordability within the county. That study has been completed and is available for your review. And then the actual ordinance itself. We have turned in a draft ordinance as well. It's about 30 pages or so, but it's very specific about how an impact fee would be administered, calculated, and monitored. So as was mentioned in the opening, this discussion's been going on for quite some time. Our work has been going on for several months. I just wanted to kind of show you a punch list of what we've done and what would be left to do if you decide to move forward. So in terms of the feasibility studies, we have done the homework that we had to do. You all have passed a resolution telling the Planning Commission they needed to do this study, so we've checked that box under state law. And then we've created the 3 documents. Again, the capital improvements plan project list is still outstanding. That would be something we would do as we move forward. And then we would go into what I call the public comment period. This would be one box to check under the public comment period, but formally you have to go to Planning Commission and have them make a formal recommendation to you all as council, and then you all would have to hear and consider the impact fees. And just like you would any other ordinance, you would have to go through that process to review and adopt the ordinance and make it law. Okay, so as I mentioned, some of the documents, next slide, the documents have been created, so I just want to give you some highlights as you read them in the coming days and weeks. So the first one is the impact fee report itself, the justification report. And what we did here was look at all the existing conditions that you have right now. We anticipated what future needs you might have, and we put a cost to all of that. And we did it for 4 different impact fees at this time: parks and recreation, fire protection, emergency medical services, and then a catch-all category I call municipal facilities and equipment. And if you look on there, it includes public works, the sheriff, library, solid waste, and government services that are affected by growth. So things like the planning department, the engineering department, E911, those kind of things that would be affected by growth are included in here. And so this gets back to the question earlier about where the impact fees would apply. And this is in the report, but everywhere that you see in blue, we went ahead and did the study for the entire county. So all of unincorporated Kershaw County is eligible for an impact fee. We wanted to do the report with the broadest scope so that if you ever wanted to extend or expand something, you didn't have to go redo a study. The areas that you see in red, you would not be able to collect impact fees in, whether it's Bethune, Elgin, or Camden, because they are incorporated cities or towns, and they would have to implement their own impact fees. You can't go in and collect a county impact fee in a town limits.
Regardless whether they want to or not. So let's say Bethune has no desire, Elgin has no desire of ever implementing that, we still couldn't collect it from the county side.
I have not seen that done before with all of those dots that were on the state.
Yes, sir.
Usually it's the boundary's the boundary,
Okay.
and that's how they've done it.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for this report. I know that there's been a lot of concern about growth with this county council, and I know that the impact fee was mentioned to try to help and offset some of that. But to my understanding, that the impact fee would not help us control the growth, because basically all it would be is another way for us to generate some revenue, correct?
Yeah, impact fees are not prohibiting growth. They're just trying to create accountability.
Because basically what happens is the builder comes in, pays the impact fee, and he's going to pass it right down to the consumer. So it's just it's just a revenue generating mechanism.
That primarily, you are correct. It's not a way to dissuade growth.
Thank you.
But it also, to that point though, hasn't it in some of these counties where you've seen it can help direct growth? So if you have an area that's densely populated has an impact fee and an area next door that's more rural that doesn't have an impact fee, the growth in that area may increase. I know that that's happened in the Low Country where they've had impact fees in the more populated area to sort of engineer growth. So if you have a county like ours with a densely populated, say Elgin, if the Elgin unincorporated area had an impact fee, it could in theory push some of that growth up to different areas and spread that growth out more evenly. Have you seen that in areas?
Yeah, and in fact, that's one of the reasons I wanted to mention in my opening that both you and the city of Camden are considering an impact fee at the same time. There is some potential that depending on what decisions are made on both sides of that line could impact where growth would want to go. And I'll show, as an extreme, I'll tell you, like in Fort Mill, up on the state line, their school district actually, I think, has a $20,000 or $21,000 impact fee for schools. And that's what led to the court challenge and everything else. It was upheld. But as much as you would think that would move the growth around, the market's so hot there, and to your point of just giving it to the buyer, they're still building there. So I think it could be used in tandem with some other things, like where you provide infrastructure and that kind of thing. But there is some evidence that the impact fees, when they get to a certain point, will get people to make a decision on where they want to invest. Yep.
So, Lancaster County, are you familiar with them?
Yes.
Okay, so Indian Land is eating their lunch with growth. And it is my understanding from talking with fellow council members and residents up there that there's an impact fee in the Indian Land area, but it's not down in Kershaw, the town of Kershaw. Those are some options that we have where we can strategically implement this impact fee if it's something council decides to do.
Yeah, it's actually a perfect question for my slide because that's where I'm at right there. So thank you for that.
Can I mention something to you on
Yeah.
that, on behalf of, just following up with Councilman Tucker? I think the geography of our county will depend on where the growth's coming, not impact fees.
I could probably make I can make several cases.
I won't agree with you.
Yeah, well, and that's fine. As a planner, I will tell you that usually water and especially sewer and transportation are really how you can direct a lot of growth in the future. Impact fees, to the point I was making earlier, can get people who are on the fence of deciding to go one way or another.
Yeah. But we're not talking about sewer or water, we're talking about impact fees.
Right now you are, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But with some of the other projects that are going on right now, studies, you could be talking about those topics as well to direct growth, I think.
Thank you.
Matt, when is the impact fee paid?
It's calculated at the time of building permit.
Okay.
The way I've written the ordinance right now, you would collect it before they could get a certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
And the theory there is that they're not actually creating the demand until they're occupying the building. That's why we let them wait for that long.
Okay. And how is the fee determined? By size of the house?
No, so all the impact fee categories, like I'll call it the unit of analysis that we used, is either population, meaning residents, or employees. And so we have a per capita or per employee number throughout the document by each of the categories. And the way we determine what type of home pays what amount is how many people tend to live in there.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes. So again, just coming back, Mr. Tucker, to your question, what you see here on the map right now are what we call service zones. And you can create service zones that would collect impact fees and have to spend them in certain areas. And again, I go back to the Berkeley County example. We had 5 service zones, but we only collected them in 1 service zone, basically from Monk's Corridor down to the 26 corridor. Right. Everywhere else, we said there wasn't enough growth coming in future years. We wouldn't be able to spend the money within the 3 years, so we just didn't turn them on. So you could do something like that as well.
Okay.
At this point in time, Parks and Recreation and that municipal facilities and services category, we assumed could be countywide. Fire protection and emergency medical services, we assumed either the fire districts or the emergency response areas that you could turn on or off if you chose to do it. Now, here's the catch to think about as you're thinking about service zones or not. Where you collect the fee is where you have to spend the fee. And so if you have a larger service zone, it gives you more flexibility for where you can spend that money, and it, in theory, is accumulating more money to spend within that area. The tighter service zones allow you to turn things on and off, but you really need to make sure the places you turn on are going to see growth come in the future. If not, they're not generating any revenue for you. So again, it's just something to think about.
So when you decided, well, you didn't decide, when council decided in Berkeley County to only collect from Monk's Corner back to Goose Creek, you spent no money in Bono, no money in Cross. Trying to think what else is up 52, but none of that northern.
Way up there, whatever it is.
None of that northern part money was spent on.
No.
Okay.
We couldn't justify enough growth to need a project up there because it was a transportation impact fee. And basically the roads were able to absorb what little growth they had going on north of Monk's Corner. Next slide, please.
Hey, Matt, how are these zones determined?
So for fire protection, we use the fire districts.
Okay.
And for EMS, we use the response areas that they're using to provide the service. Again, going back to that rational nexus term, if I had to go to court and I could say, well, you know, this EMS station provides service in the area you're in, that's why we collected that fee to go to that station. So that's the argument we try to make on this. The other thing I just want to make sure you understand as you're reading the document is we use what's called a consumption-driven approach, which in its simplest form, if you think about it now, the 6 of you could stand in line, and then when the 7th person comes in, they need to pay the same proportion you all paid. And as new growth comes in, they get in the back of the line, they just keep paying the same proportion in order to try to increase services. So that's sort of what we did for all the different impact fee categories. Next slide. And the way we did this was we interviewed all of your different department heads that were in those categories that we talked about. We pulled your property schedules for your insurance policies. We pulled your vehicle inventories that you had. We went on to GIS and the assessor's database and got the land values. But this was really kind of a technique, like a snowball technique, where we just started doing research until we could get enough information to write the report. So that's kind of how we did this, and it's the same way we've done it throughout the state. So then the other thing just to have in your mind as you're reading these reports, you're going to see presented what's called the maximum allowable impact fee. That's the most money I can collect for you based on the data that you had available. Most communities, though, also adopt what's called a discount rate. The discount rate is some percentage off of that maximum allowable. Sometimes it's because they want to be competitive in the region. Sometimes people pick it because they want to send a message, coming back to what we were talking about earlier. Other places will do it so that just in case there's any data discrepancy or something, and we did get challenged, we would have a little bit of wiggle room as we were being reviewed. But the discount rate is a policy decision only. It has nothing to do with the math or the inventory that we did, but it is there, and it would be solely a policy decision of this council as you move forward. Next one.
So if I may, if you do this versus the other slide, in your collections, your maximum allowable impact fee, anything else that you wanted to increase, you would have to have another study done.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. So next slide. So these are actually the numbers calculated. So, you know, if you don't want to read the whole report, this is the slide for you that you can just keep coming back to. But this is for all 4 categories that we have for you. So Parks and Recreation, Fire Protection, EMS, and Municipal Facilities and Equipment. What would be the maximum you could charge? And then I just put theoretical discount rates. You can choose any number between 0 and 100, but I just chose these 4 so you could see. So even if you wanted to, I can't justify through the data collecting any more than $2,691 on a new home that comes in. One of the things that I bring to your attention, because it was a really big issue in York County with School District 1, I was just part of that process, is they were very sensitive to the mobile home issue. And so I want you to be aware that in order to pass that rational nexus test, anybody who creates demand on the system has to pay their proportionate share. As soon as you start exempting those folks from doing it, the other folks get upset and they sue. So if you're going to do this, you have to do it for everybody. And so you'll see in there single-family homes, mobile homes, multifamily, be apartment, townhome, or condo. And there's actually like 4 pages of land uses for each category that are in there as you see those numbers. Yes?
Why are mobile homes so high? Is it because they're less value, so you try to, I'm not understanding how you derive to,
It's because they put a demand on the system, right?
It's because the U.S. Census Bureau reports there are more people living in a mobile home per home than living in a single-family home per home.
you're kidding.
I'm telling you.
Oh.
Times are tough out there, guys.
That's what struck me when I saw the numbers. Is like, you got people building $400,000 homes. It's going to pay less than a guy that's in a single wide trying to make it.
And again, I just tell you how it is. That's probably one of the primary reasons that they don't have the School District 1 York County impact fee, is because they were very sensitive to that.
You've done a great job here tonight, but I'm not for it.
Okay. I wasn't here to garner your support.
I understand, but I'm just making a comment.
Thank you.
You said earlier that some of it had to do with the number of people in the home. So if you had a couple that was wanting to build a house that had 4 children or 5 children, and a couple that wanted to build a house that had no children, the couple without children would have less of an impact fee than, is that my understanding, or did I understand that wrong?
The way that kind of the precedent that's been set is people use the average person per household published by the U.S. Census Bureau. And so in that case, they're not judging number of bedrooms, they're coming to an average. Now, one of the things we did do in the draft ordinance that we wrote for you is we created a provision called an independent impact fee calculation. So if anybody wanted to challenge and say, I'm building a 55-plus community, we don't have children, or they could come in, and if they would on a letter provide proof that that's what they're selling, then that you could grant, if you wanted to, a different impact fee. Because again, we do it per person. So if right now somebody wants to come in and then hold to it almost like a restriction that they would have less people in their homes, then you could probably grant them that.
Question. So the people that implemented impact fees before the state got involved with all these laws of having these studies done, because this wasn't always how it was done since I've been on council. You could go in and do your ordinance as a municipality or as a county and set your fees wherever you want to set it. And if you don't believe it, go to Mount Pleasant. It's a nice one down there.
I did it.
Okay. Are they reined back in now, or are they grandfathered in before those laws took effect?
So Mount Pleasant was allowed to do it before the law, but then they wanted to update their numbers. And when they wanted to update their numbers, they had to come in under the new act.
Okay.
So that's what got them, was they let the old one go as long as they could before they really wanted higher numbers. But once you update to the higher numbers, they had to go under state law. So Mount Pleasant is now consistent with the Development Impact Fee Act. Goose Creek was the same way. Okay. So yeah, slowly, as the number isn't high enough anymore that they picked long ago, they are coming into conformance with the new law.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Next slide. So then the next part would be the capital improvements project list. This has not been created to date, but if and when we create that, it'll be a list of projects in each of the 4 categories for which impact fees would be eligible to be spent on. Again, I would advocate for a small, medium, large type portfolio as you're going through this to make sure you can meet the 3-year spend requirement. As part of it, you have to have a start and completion date that you're targeting. Try to summarize where the revenues and expenditures will be coming and going to, and how the project will be funded, and specifically the ones that will be funded with impact fees, so that we can look at that. In terms of things that are eligible, again, it's things that create new capacity on the system. It wouldn't be to affect any existing deficiencies or anything of that nature. It had to be tied to new growth in order to happen. Right? The third item is what's called the affordable housing study. That needs to be done. That has been done and turned in. The law requires a study to be done. It is silent on how you do the study. We've done enough of these now, and the other consulting firms who are doing them, we all kind of do them the same way because there's comfort in doing the same analysis. So that's what we've done here. You go to the next slide, please, Ryan. So what we end up using is the U.S. HUD requirement or threshold of 30% of your income being spent on housing. And as you look at this now, the table 1 that you see at the top is before the impact fees, and table 3 that you see at the bottom is after the impact fees are applied. So what you see here is to own a home in unincorporated Kershaw County is expensive, and it's growing. And part of the reason it's growing, frankly, is because people are moving in from outside who are selling a home in the Northeast and paying cash for whatever number the developer tells them it is because it's a good deal in their mind. So it's bringing the costs up. But you can see for owner-occupied housing, in both conditions, you would be over the 30% threshold. Now, again, I just call it like it is. The law doesn't ask you to do anything with this. It's just information that you know that you're above the 30% threshold. For rental, you're okay. And then the final component that we have that you can review moving forward is the actual development impact fee ordinance. It is lengthy. It's lengthy on purpose, so we can be ready for anything that comes in. It has an impact fee schedule, so a table that you can quickly see for your convenience what the impact fees might be if charged. But if you read the letter of the law, we spell out everything as a math problem, so that if something happens that that schedule isn't ready for or something we didn't anticipate, the math problem rules the day, and we can apply that in any way needed. And then this is actually a spreadsheet that was turned in with the development impact fee ordinance, and it's set up as a spreadsheet for a reason, because where those colors are on the top, you can apply different discount rates and see the numbers change if you're trying to hit a target. So just some things to consider kind of in closing. Go ahead. If it comes to impact fees, whether you decide to do them or not, it's fine with me. I'm just doing the study and the proof of concept for you. But timing is everything. So obviously the economic conditions, whether you're growing or not growing, is really important. The political support and the understanding of what impact fees are. Who else is doing them? As was mentioned, some of these questions in the Low Country, it's just sort of the way they do business down there now, because everybody's sort of done them. You start to see that happening around the Charlotte area as well. Not so much in this region. And so think about where you are in the region and what you want to do. It's important consideration before you move forward. And then the budget planning process. As I said, this time of year is when people usually ask me to come present because they're worried about how they're going to fund some of their gaps within their budget. And so they want to hear about development impact fees.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Nuncaster, so say, I know you said new growth. Say, I have a single wide and I was renting it on some land. I was able to buy some land, but I owned the house, or was able to buy the house, and I moved it from one location to another. Would that impact fee then apply to the new location? So the person who owned that home and then moved to another location with that mobile home, would an impact fee apply at that point?
If you're creating a demand at a new location, it would apply. Now, there'd be a credit at the old one, but there would be a new impact fee at the new one.
And the same applies to a house. So if I bought a house and I moved it from one location to another location, that would be new development.
Yeah.
And that impact fee would apply.
Yeah. The simple test is, are you creating new demand in a new location that needs capacity? That's the test that you would have. I just show you this slide in terms of partnering strategy, just to let you know that there are some considerations to be had. And I'm not saying, one should lead the other, but just so you know what's going on with the City of Camden's discussions on this. They're forthcoming. Next week, they have a meeting on this topic. But I just want to bring up that there is some interesting things to think about on either side of the boundary if one, both, or none of you adopt an impact fee. And so all I tell you is to have eyes wide open and ears listening for what's going on in your region. And then in terms of the partnering strategy, hopefully I've conveyed this to you today. I'm not an impact fee salesperson. I don't really care if you do it or not. I just wanted to make sure you had all the information you needed to so you can make an educated decision and you had the information prepared if you want to move forward. So again, just having an open and honest approach and looking at the pros and cons of this are very important. Some councils have acted favorably in past. Some had said, nope, this isn't for me. And I'm just putting it out there that it's gone both ways.
You've done a good job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Maybe in closing, I should just end there.
Yes, Mr. Tucker.
Was there any consideration or anything written in this study to address campers? Like some people live on their parcel of land, but they live in their campers.
Not at this time.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Matt, can you walk me through, and like a dumbed-down version of how the justification came to be for the amounts? Because you're not allowed to discriminate through this process, but I feel like the selection of the amounts is inherently discriminatory by making the mobile homes pay more than everybody else.
Right.
So it just seems like square footage or the amount of your building would be non-discriminatory.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm just trying to think how I want to answer this. So I'm just going to take any impact fee category, call it category A. It doesn't
Okay.
matter which of the four it is. What I end up doing is I come in almost like an actuary or an auditor, and I basically come in and see everything that you have right now for that impact fee category. So do you own land for that category? Yes. Well, how much is it worth? Do you own buildings for that category? Do you have vehicles and equipment that qualify for impact fees? So I basically just add up all the wealth of your existing service provision, whether it's parks, fire, EMS, or and based on that value, I put that in the numerator. Then we divide that by the number of residents in the denominator. Again, that consumption-driven approach is if you just get in line and the next person gets in line behind you. Then if you divide the total cost by the number of residents, you get a per resident cost. Now the problem comes in, whether you believe the census or not, is when you go and click a single family home, a mobile home, or an apartment, the U.S. Census Bureau, again, whether you believe it or not, is reporting that there are more people living in a mobile home per home on average than are living in a single-family home.
In Kershaw County?
In Kershaw
Okay.
County, yes. And that's
So
how the
why
number,
would they be penalized, though? Why would they have to pay more just because that's what they're choosing to live in?
it's not what they're choosing to live in, it's because the demand on the system is created by people. People create the demand, and so if you have more people in a structure, that's creating more demand. That's the theory behind it.
Okay. So me and my husband and our 2 kids, we purchase a mobile home, we pay higher. We purchase a single-family home, we pay less. We're still 4 people with the same demand.
That's correct in that single case, but when you go to the data that is looked at your entire county, they're just saying for whatever reason, whether you believe in the census, whether you think it's accurate, I mean, there's all kinds of things we could challenge on the census, but it's an agreed upon data source is that whenever they knocked on doors or whenever they did whatever they did, they found more individuals in a mobile home than they found more individuals in a single-family home. That's all it is. We're not trying to discriminate one way or the other. We're just trying to use a data source that's available.
Yep. And
Are there any other data sources you can use or any other math that you can use to come up with it?
What I would probably do is, again, in the ordinance, when you read it, look just, because it'll be a PDF, you can do a word find, just look for the word independent. It'll come up a lot because we do prepare for that. So in theory, let's say you have a single-family home, or let's say you have a mobile home, and you're coming in and you want to show that only my wife and I are going to live there, 2 people. There's a letter you can fill out that you would say, we commit to only having 2 people live here. If that's the case, then you would take that cost per person for 2 people instead of 2.68 or whatever it is, and you would multiply that out. But then the problem comes in the enforcement is, let's say you have a child. Are you going to come tell the county, oh, we added a third person, so now we're 3? And so, I mean, it's the enforcement issue that just gets a little.
So is cost per resident the only way to do this? There's no cost per square footage or cost per amount of building?
You could probably do that, but if 2 people live in a 5,000 square foot home or 2 people live in a 500 square foot home, it's the people that put the demand on the system, not the square footage. So it's just kind of been common practice that you use per resident and per employee. And I'm speaking of all the firms who do that work.
Okay, thank you.
These are to be, just so I understand, the methodology that you're talking about, this is the methodology that survived appellate court scrutiny, district court scrutiny. So these are the methodologies that have existed after all the litigation. If we were to develop a new process, we'd have to pilot that through the entire litigation process to get to the end to see, like you mentioned with the school, when anything you do novel outside of the lane of generally accepted practices, you open yourself up to litigation and carrying that through the Supreme Court level until you know if it's an accepted practice. Is that fair?
Yeah, development impact fees are like any other ordinance. It's nice to have partners. And, you know, when you go to court and you can show the judge that, look, 90% of the state is doing it this way, that's a powerful statement to me.
Any questions for Matt? Any other discussion? Okay.
Danny, so what's the timeline before, I know this is going to planning, what's sort of the timeline until that will be back to us, or could be back to us?
Matt, what did we have down?
When we, trying to remember exactly, but I know the resolution basically had, it was either 90 or 120 days, or it said, or reasonably expected. So we put that in there just in case.
I just want to make sure, I mean, regardless, I mean, obviously, whether or not it carries the day here is a different question, but I just want to make sure that it doesn't stay in planning. I want to make sure it comes back so that we can make our decision and that it doesn't sort of languish in planning.
So, you know, my response will be, it certainly won't be next council meeting, but it won't be next year either. So it's, you know, there's some progressions it has to go through, but I expect it to come back here. I mean, y'all, we've done the work, we spent the money, so, you know, you bring the question before y'all to see what direction you want to go with it. So.
All right, that's fine. I can have some flexibility, but I think that, you know, if we're a month and a half down the road and planning is still waiting to take a look at it, I think we'll need to maybe light a fire. So up or down, it needs to come back to us.
Sure.
It's been a long time. I think, I guess, I'm just one of them.
Concur.
I don't think it can't make this budget year, though, can it, Danny?
No.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Councilman Jones, I wouldn't even try to do, I just think, you know, we've heard issues go down there to die, and I just want to make sure that we have the final say sooner rather than later.
Understood.
Anything else? Gentlemen?
I'm good till I finish reading this document. Then I'll have more questions. But
If you direct any questions to staff, I'd be happy to help them answer them.
okay, thank you, and thank you for your hard work in trying to get this where we can understand it and make sure that if it's something that council chooses to do, we're not creating a liability where we can continue to get sued.
Yeah.
So appreciate that.
It's in my best interest, too.
Yes, sir.
Matt, is this your last slide?
I'm going to call it either way.
Okay. I know we're kind of acting like it's done, but just wanted to check with you. All right, anything else from council? Matt, thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your hard work, and thank you for being available for our questions.
Of course.
All right, that concludes our discussion on the Kershaw County Impact Fee Study. Mr. Templer, just make sure we get a copy of the study and also these slides.
Yep.
And to any of the members or citizens in Kershaw County, if you'd like to see the study or have any questions on it, please give us a call.
I think the citizens would just appreciate us getting the live streaming back up.
Yes, they would. Any update on that, Ryan, Mr. Templer?
No.
Okay.
Just have to push it out like the last time, so work to resolve it.
So some people rely on that live stream. So did we fix it from the last time?
Well, the last time it was a third-party issue.
Okay.
So all of our equipment, this time it's an equipment issue.
Okay.
So with the camera itself.
Okay. Can we get voice live?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've got, well, not live, but we'll have the audio copy available ASAP.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair, could you please look into the fact what it would cost us to own our own system to do it, so we would not have to rely on a third party?
If that's possible, yes, sir.
I think it might be possible, but if you would look into it.
Okay, back on our agenda, we're up to ordinances. So we have a couple tonight. The first one is going to be the third reading of an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to the fee agreement by and between Kershaw County, South Carolina, and Canfor Southern Pine Incorporated. This is the third and final hearing. We had the public hearing on it. Thank you, Mr. Byrd and Mr. Maddox, for speaking. Is there a motion pertaining to this ordinance?
I so move.
Okay, Mr. Jones makes the motion, and is there a second?
A second.
Mr. Shu makes seconds, and into discussion.
Again, thank you. Great partners with Kershaw County, appreciate it. I don't make a whole lot of motions up here unless it's for myself, but I appreciate you guys.
Mr. Byrd, I don't have any additional questions or anything. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your investment in Kershaw County. This is an extension of the currently existing fee in lieu execution and delivery.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Tucker.
Thank you. I would just like to say a hearty thank you as well. I didn't realize you had 200 employees out there, so that was a good number to hear. And I said this last council meeting, I really appreciate y'all getting your C's correct, choosing Camden versus Conway. We're greatly grateful for that. But thank you, and continue to grow.
Right, anything else? Okay. Right, all those in favor of the ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to a fee agreement by and between Kershaw County, South Carolina, and Canfor Southern Pine Incorporated, indicate by raising your hand. And it's unanimous. Right, we'll move on to the next ordinance. This will be a second reading of an ordinance amending and restating the Kershaw Fairfield Multi-County Industrial Park, MCIP agreement. Is there a motion pertaining to this ordinance?
So moved.
Mr. Tomlinson makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Tucker seconds. And any discussion?
About some conversation. Would you, Danny, explain what we're doing here? Ready to get one of your,
Or Mr. DeBose?
yeah.
Or Mr. Burgess, he's back there too.
Yeah,
Mr. Burgess
so-
is here, yep.
Yeah, this current Kershaw Fairfield Multi-County Industrial Park expires in June, so it needs to be reauthorized. There are multiple properties in it for Kershaw County, and essentially it needs to be reauthorized so that those properties continue to receive the benefits, taxation benefits of being in a MCIP. I will note, just for y'all's reference, that the Exhibit A to the actual agreement has now been populated with all the Kershaw County properties. Exhibit B is still blank. Fairfield's working on their counterpart to it, but the Kershaw properties are listed. That's the only change from last reading.
And those will be available third reading from Fairfield
That's my understanding, correct?
before we bring it back.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
Thank you.
Mr. DeBose, thank you for including those. Okay, so in the most basic terms, Mr. DeBose, if the investment is located in Kershaw County, we will give 1% to Fairfield.
Yeah, correct. This operates like your standard multi-county industrial park agreement, wherein the
county that has the investment property receives 99% of the revenues generated from it. The other 1% goes to the partner county. The host county for the industry that's doing the investing then does a pro rata split among the taxing entities in that county after taking the cost of attracting that investment or industry off the top. So the county can reimburse itself for improvements to an industrial park, better roads, extending sewer, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, you're not you're revenue neutral on your investments into a park. They get paid back.
And why does the county do this with other counties? Like, what would be the benefit of entering an MCIP?
So you can receive basically ad valorem taxation benefits from having standalone fees, and often properties are also put in the parks. But a park is a mechanism to essentially grant ad valorem tax relief to properties. And again, it's a creature of state statute.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, all those in favor of an ordinance amending and restating the Kershaw-Fairfield Multi-County Industrial Park MCIP agreement indicate by raising your hand. And the vote is unanimous. That ordinance passes second reading. All right, next ordinance, first reading. This is an ordinance of the County Council of Kershaw County, South Carolina, to amend the county's official zoning map designation for approximately 89 acres of land with tax parcel number 29400000045 for Alan and Donna Barton from R15 to R2 and providing an effective date. Is there a motion pertaining to this ordinance?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve first reading on rezoning the 89 plus or minus acres in Elgin.
Okay, Mr. Tucker makes a motion to approve. Is there a second? Okay, I'll second. Right, and into discussion. Mr. Templer, do we have a member from Planning and Zoning here?
I have the staff report, if that helps. I can handle that.
Okay.
So this is plus or minus 89 acres. It is landlocked. It has a private access or an easement going to it. The Planning Commission did hear this. There were some concerns from neighbors around, and they were more concerned about the future use of this parcel. But our ZLDR restricts a setup like this regardless of the size of the parcel when it has a restricted access to it through a private easement. There can be no more than 3 homes on this parcel. So there's currently one single family dwelling on the property now, and it also, this rezoning makes it more restrictive for if there were ever to be anything on this parcel. This is a more restrictive rezoning, dropping the capacity to put residences per acre. The Planning Commission did vote unanimously to adopt this.
Okay, thank you.
Danny, I had sent you a letter that a constituent sent me that wanted to, was this that parcel? The letter that I forwarded to you about, there was some zoning issue, wasn't, and he sent it to me and I sent it to you to make sure the zoning board got to look at it. It was at this parcel?
I think so, but I can't say for sure.
I think it is too, right? This is based on the area?
So there were some residents that came out from the surrounding area that spoke and voiced their concerns.
Forgive me for looking at my phone. I'm just going to try to pull that letter up so I can take a quick look at it, if you guys don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. Are Alan and Donna Barton here by chance? Would you all come up? How are y'all? And if you can just tell us the purpose for the rezoning in your own words.
Under the current zoning, we cannot put a manufactured home. We're both retired. I'm a retired vet. U.S. Army, retired 2001.
Thank you for your service.
I don't make that a lot. You know,
Affordability.
to build a stick-built home versus a manufactured home, under the current zoning, we can't put a manufactured home.
We have one there for my brother that's older that we care for.
And that just replaced one that was already there. So that one was grandfathered in under the current zoning. Our original thought was, let's just go for a variance to put a manufactured home, but that was against the law, according to Joey Adams.
It was awesome, by the way.
I can't pronounce his last name.
We can't either.
Well, he's here.
Yeah, he's awesome.
So this was the next step for rezoning for the manufactured home.
Well, I'm going to support you.
And we only wanted,
Yes, sir.
we only want one more home in there.
Just for us.
And it was also pointed out that 80% of this property is in a flood zone.
25 Mile Creek.
Yeah, and I was reading the letter, I don't want to identify, but a letter from a citizen. The concern that this citizen had was with changing the zoning. Basically, their concern was sort of a mobile home park being put in there, right? But as if I hear what you're saying, you're talking about putting a single structure. We're not talking about building a mobile home park out there.
No, and we couldn't because of the private.
Because, well, in the flood zone, I see too,
Because of the easement.
right.
I mean, not the easement, the right-of-way. And what is it called?
Easement
The
right
deeded-
away.
the deeded
It's 60-foot right away. And in order to develop it, I would have to pave it, and I would have to own it to pave it. Bring in sewer, bring in water. We're on a private well, we're on a private sewer.
Well, you know something that's really important? It's your property.
Hard-earned money, yes.
Yeah, we spent our savings to get it. And now we've been saving for the last 2 years to afford a manufactured home versus a stick-built home. So if we wanted 2,200 square feet of a manufactured home, we'd spend roughly $150,000 versus $300,000 or $400,000. But looks like we're going to pay more in that fee because it's going to be a manufactured home versus a stick-built home. So what?
Well, the impact fee, that was just a discussion, a study
Right,
that,
you know.
so
Right,
that's
yeah.
not implemented.
So.
And, oh,
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just going to say, I don't have an issue. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure, because I remembered a citizen reaching out to me directly, and I just wanted to make sure I understood those concerns, but I
Right,
think.
that letter was brought up during the first meeting with Planning and Zoning, or the Zoning Commission.
Yeah, there's no way we could. put a park.
He was concerned there was going to be 50 to 100 manufactured homes in there, and he wasn't there to listen that we could only have 3.
Well, I think it goes back to, and I agree with Councilman Jones. I mean, I think we should do everything we can to make sure people can do what they want with their property, with exceptions when it puts a burden on the community. And obviously, if you were building a mobile home park, that would certainly be a different conversation. But I'm convinced that
Right.
it sounds like planning and zoning voting unanimously.
And I'd like to
Sorry, I
point
didn't mean to
out-
hold up the discussion, ladies and gentlemen. I just
Madam
want to make
Chair.
sure that.
I'd also like to point out that we are 1/2 mile off the main road. So in order to see us back in there, you would have to have a drone, or what did he call it, the Russian,
Balloon.
or the Chinese balloon.
Mr. Cato?
Danny, you did state that even with this rezoning, there could only be 3 dwellings on that property, correct?
Right, because of the
So,
right-of-way,
I mean,
the
that would take
access.
away any development. I just
Yes, to
wanted
put
that-
that citizen's mind at ease. If they move away and someone else buys it, they
Yeah.
can still own it.
But I think it's good to have that on the
Yeah.
record. And I appreciate you guys putting up
Oh,
with
we're
my
not moving.
questions. So,
We've got roots, and they're going to go deep.
You guys have had a fair, I mean, I know it's been a long experience, but fairly smooth experience. I mean, I know there's been a lot of hurdles to jump through, but how's it been?
No, I inherited a lot of problems with this property.
We're getting there.
I meant specifically with the county. It just, I mean, having you here, it's always good to hear, like, how was your process dealing with the county side of this to get where you are today? I know it's been long, but has it been smooth, or what, any issues that you saw that we could look at?
I'm not going to say it's been smooth. It's just, I didn't understand what we got into when we bought the property, but we were going to buy this property.
Yeah.
Just a lot of steps.
It's-
Right.
There
And
are a
I'm-
lot of steps.
And I'm willing to follow all those steps.
We're trying.
and we wish you the best.
I mean, they were dealing with somebody who cut all the corners, and maybe they thought I was going to cut the corners too. No,
Well, thank you. I appreciate you going through this process and enduring it, and thank you for being so receptive to our questions.
Still have to go through 3 of these?
2 more after
Yes.
this one.
Yes, after this one, 2 more. I'm going to go to Mr. DeBose. Okay, I think he had something pertinent.
I just wanted to note for the record that the citizen concerns about a mobile home park, again, they are limited to 3 units based on their access, but the RD2 zoning district that they are seeking a rezoning to prohibits mobile home parks. So, again, just for the record, since that was an expressed concern, and I know Mr. Shoemake wanted to make sure the record reflected that those concerns have been addressed.
Thank you, Mr. DeBose. Mr. Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to give you a couple pieces of advice. One is come back for the next 2 readings here for council, and make sure that we don't slow the process down so you can get what you need on your rezoning, get your mobile home built in, and then the impact fees won't affect you at all if they ever come along. So they don't go retroactive. So you can have your stuff done well before we even make a decision. But I know the process can be drooling in trying to get this, and that's what most of our citizens do is struggle with the process because it's so much. But don't let it overwhelm you, and stick with Mr. Joey back there and let him guide you through it. That's his job.
well, it was better for him to speak than for me to speak, because I still have the military mind and the military language.
Right. Well, we appreciate your discipline tonight.
You know what, sir? She has the same thing, the military mind.
Well, I've got my reins right here.
Right.
Yeah. Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Tomlinson.
thank you for your service. Appreciate everything that I can do to be a part of allowing citizens to do what they'd like on their own property. I grew up in a mobile home in Antioch. It's something that's near and dear to me, and I think every citizen, it's a choice. I think this is the right thing to do, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you.
All right.
I do
any
have one
other
question.
Yes, sir.
How come we missed the 4th Tuesday for the first reading? 'Cause
The 4th
this-
Tuesday in the last month.
Right, because this was, we went to the other board on the 10th.
On April 10th? That's a good question. Mr. Templer, do you know why we didn't get it on the agenda sooner?
No, I'd have to check with staff.
Okay.
It's probably didn't get in time, and so therefore, it didn't meet our deadlines for the package.
Why don't we
Yes, but why is what,
why don't we just let Mr. Templer get back with him?
yeah.
I'm not mad, I just wondered.
No, that's a valid question. Yeah, you guys have been working on this. So I will call you and I will let you know, okay?
Thank you.
With that explanation.
Is that it?
Yes, sir. All right, all those in favor of an ordinance, Kershaw County, South Carolina, to amend the county's official zoning map designation for the tax parcel 29400000045 for Alan and Donna Barton from R15 to R2, indicate by raising your hand. All right, and the vote is unanimous, passes first reading. And that, let me look at the date, 23rd.
23rd.
Mr. and Mrs. Barton, the 23rd of May will be the second reading, and then the final reading will be on June 13th. All right, resolutions. We have one resolution tonight. All right, so this is a resolution honoring Colonel Lauren Webb. To recognize and honor Colonel Lauren Webb, United States Army retired, for his meritorious and lifelong service to Kershaw County, the state of South Carolina, and the United States of America, and to name the Woodward Field Control Room in his honor in recognition of his public service. Whereas Kershaw County wishes to celebrate the patriotic life and service of Colonel Lauren Webb, and whereas born in Ridgeland on July 6, 1930, he learned the value of hard work growing up on a farm and working at his parents' general stores. He also worked making septic tanks and pouring concrete at Webb Concrete Company Incorporated, still operating in Barnwell. And whereas, in exchange for flying lessons, young Lauren Webb washed airplanes at the local airport, a portent to his military service, and whereas he earned a bachelor's degree from Clemson College in 1953 in animal, I don't know what that is, husbandry, and was commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Army. He successfully completed Army flight training at Fort Rucker, Alabama, where 150 flight candidates enrolled, but only 50 graduated. And whereas Colonel Webb completed various flight schools during his career in Army aviation and was qualified to fly many aircraft, including single and multi-engine airplanes and helicopters, and he was licensed as an Army flight instructor for many of them. And whereas, after flying along the DMZ to the Yellow Sea in Korea and back to base from 1959 to 1960, Colonel Webb was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division to support paratroopers at Simmons Army Airfield at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and then volunteered for training on the Mohawk, which he later flew in Vietnam. And whereas, he was stationed in Verona, Italy, where he flew Bell Huey helicopters, Beavers, and Otters. Otters were used to transport Italian paratroopers, and he flew Mohawks to Italian air shows and Sikorsky helicopters to supply troops on Italian mountaintops. And whereas, in Italy, Colonel Webb was honored to fly Senator Strom Thurmond around, who was a general in the Army Reserve at the time. And whereas, when land behind Italy's Vajont Dam gave way, killing over thousands of people in flooding waters, he participated in rescue and support activities in the Sikorsky helicopter, for which he was awarded the Flying S from Sikorsky helicopters. And whereas, after serving in Italy, Colonel Webb served a tour in Vietnam, where he commanded a Mohawk unit and Anke flying infrared missions, low-level reconnaissance, and over 80 combat missions. And whereas, after completing Command and General Staff College, he was assigned as the Deputy Chief of Staff for the Intelligence Division at Fort Monroe, Virginia. He was later sent to Langley Air Force Base to correct procedural deficiencies at its flight facility, for which service he was awarded the Legion of Merit and the Meritorious Service Medal. And whereas, in 1973, Colonel Webb was assigned to Ishan, Iran, to teach Iranian pilots to fly the Bell Huey helicopter, and then was assigned to Fort Lee, Virginia, retiring in 1975 after 25 years of military service with almost 10,000 flying hours. And whereas, he moved to Camden and used his talents by teaching JROTC at Lower Richland High School, and then served in Kershaw County Juvenile Court for 15 years. He served on the Camden Airport Commission for 12 years as its chairman for 4 years. And whereas, Colonel Webb has been a fixture at Woodward Field, serving as a mentor and great source of advice for pilots both young and old. And whereas, together with Barbara Webb, his beloved wife of more than 62 years, he reared 2 fine children, Colonel Tim Webb and Melinda Rabin, both of whom reside in Kershaw County. And whereas, the Kershaw County Council is grateful for citizens like Lauren Webb, whose lives are marked with patriotism and excellence, and the council members take great pride in saluting his exemplary life and service. Whereas, Kershaw County Council has adopted rules and order of business that allow it to name county buildings and approve the display of honorariums on or in county buildings or property be express action and approval. And whereas, Colonel Lauren Webb's contributions to Kershaw County are such that Kershaw County Council finds that he should be recognized and honored for his lifelong service to Kershaw County, the state of South Carolina, and the United States of America through naming the Woodward Field Control Room in his honor and by the display of an honorarium at Woodward Field. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Kershaw County Council in meeting duly assembled that 1, The members of Kershaw County Council, by this resolution, recognize and honor Colonel Lauren Webb, United States Army retired, and commend his meritorious and lifelong service to Kershaw County, the state of South Carolina, and the United States of America. And 2, that the control room at Woodward Field shall be named in honor of Colonel Lauren Webb, and an honorarium be placed at Woodward Field celebrating his public service. Resolved by Kershaw County Council this 9th day of May, 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Mr. Jones makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And second by Mr. Cato. Any discussion?
Yes, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
I've known Lauren Webb all my life. When I first got in county government back in 73, 74, he actually went over to Midlands Technical College with me to speak on my behalf. You know, we had to do that to get some credit because I majored in electives. But I tell you what, I know we have a rule that's currently there that we don't name buildings or offices after people, but I am absolutely in support of this council doing this, and I think it was the right thing and the right time for us to do it. And I know Mr. Borowski and I have talked about this. He has really pushed this, and thank you, Mr. Mike, so much. This family is well-deserved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, absolutely. Mike, can you come up to the podium?
Now, this
Wait,
is
we'll put
Tom
you on the
Borowski's
spot.
brother, folks, for all those who know Tom Borowski.
When is Colonel Webb's birthday?
July 6th.
Okay, so what is y'all's plan out at the airport?
Well, we want to try to keep it much of a secret as we
Oh,
can,
okay.
but we are
Unfortunately,
planning.
the live stream is down.
So hopefully the audio's gone now. But we're planning something in July, probably July 8th, around that time.
Okay.
And we're going to have a nice little event for them. But, you know, what we'd like to see is, you know, you all are invited to come out to the airport at any time. And I would strongly encourage that you come out on a Saturday morning. Colonel Webb's there every day at 9 o'clock, 9:30, every Saturday. And he's probably there 3 or 4 days during the week. And believe it or not, it's amazing on how much people he draws there. Just to hear his stories and get his experience, and you know they'll be talking about planes and flight missions, and I'm sitting there like a kid, like what they talking about? But it's just amazing. And Colonel Webb, I believe, is going to be 93 this coming July.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I would encourage, if anybody wants to come out to the airport, please come out, especially on a Saturday. I'm there every Saturday. I usually get there about 7 in the morning, but usually everybody starts getting there about 9:30. And if you're what they call a lucky dog, you might get a ride in a plane. My first flight, when I went out there, the first day I was out there was in a T6. So they're very inviting to pilots. And like I said, there's sometimes we have 15, 20 people in the control room, you know, just sitting having coffee and just discussing stuff like that.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for advocating for this, and it's such an honor. I just want to tell my colleagues, 10,000 hours in a helicopter is very hard on your body. So that's just amazing, 25 years of service in aviation.
And what we'd like to do, too, is, you know, believe it or not, Colonel Webb actually still flies. He doesn't fly the plane, but he'll go for a ride.
Mm-hmm. I'll ride with him.
I'll let you take my seat.
That would be great. They actually they have a ladder that they actually use to get him up on the plane. It's a sight to see. But again, like I said, I just encourage everybody to come out and on a Saturday and just to visit, come to our meetings. You know, we're wide open. We want more people to get involved. So again, you know, the invitation's out there. I do got something that I was asked to give you.
Okay. Mike, when are your meetings?
Our next meeting's, I think, next Monday.
Okay. On Mondays?
Yeah, it's usually the second Monday. Yeah, just so you know, this is how much he's respected out there, that one of the pilots actually wrote a book about him.
On the fly.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, thank you for sharing all this with us, especially Saturday mornings.
Yes,
Like I
thank
said,
you.
come out get some coffee, and you know, I know not only would the pilots appreciate it, but the staff out there. And you know, and I got to say is, you know, I got on the commission and I've only been on it maybe 7, 8 months. And, you know, you got probably the two hardest working people out there that I've ever seen in Gary and Dale. I mean, those guys are unbelievable. When the pilots come in, you know, I ask them, I mean, we get pilots that actually drive here 2 hours and have an airport 20 minutes from their house. And just out of curiosity, I said, why do you come here? And they say, because the hospitality and the service we get, it's well worth the drive. You know, the guy that actually wrote that book, he drives an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes every weekend to come fly his plane out of our airport because of the service he gets.
That's awesome. It's a special place, and the National Guard trains there a lot too, just because the air traffic is low and the runway is so nice.
Yeah, it's, I mean, they just did the runway. So, I mean, they got a lot going on out there. But it's unbelievable what you see coming in and out of there. I mean, it's a busy airport. Very, very busy. I mean, you got a lot of people flying in, you know, economic development. You got people flying in. You got the businesses flying in. You got the private commercial or private people coming, flying. So it's a very active airport. And you come out there and you get either Dale or you get Gary and take a tour. It's unbelievable the tour they can give. So
That's awesome.
And we want to get more involved in the community. So,
Okay.
so we're looking at some plans for next year.
Okay, Mike, let's do an air show.
There we go. We'll be on the line.
Thank you.
Right, any other questions, comments? All right. All those in support of the resolution to recognize and honor Colonel Lauren Webb indicate by raising your hand. And the vote is unanimous. And I can't wait to do more with this, and I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't know that there was some surprise planning going on.
Thank you.
All right, new business. So our new rules that we amended and restated this year thank you, that form the Finance Committee, thank you. Mr. Templer's given us the budget and the capital projects list. States that the Finance Committee will give a report the meeting before second reading of the budget. So that's this meeting. We'll have second reading on May 23rd. The rules do indicate that report will be an item under new business, so that's why it's under new business and not discussion. However, these reports and recommendations are for information only, and there will be no vote taken tonight. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the Finance Chair, Mr. Sammy Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like to, first of all, start off by thanking the Finance Committee, Mr. Derek Shoemate and Councilman Brant Thomason for all their efforts and hard work. And you should have in front of you your capital items and your budget, but I want to go to the sheet that was in your agenda, which is the Finance Committee Opera and Accommodation Funds recommendation. We had some monies that were left over from opera, and then we had some A-tax money after digging it out into the numbers. And so the Finance Committee made a very conscious and a very deliberate decision to make these recommendations. And I'm happy to allow my colleagues to speak once I go over these numbers with you. So what we're doing is making a recommendation that we take $6 million of the opera money and have it directed towards recreation. No particular project. It's just $6 million held into our account now where it's bearing interest for recreation. We also recommend that $165,000 comes out of that for EMS chassis. Another $63,000 for Kirkland Community Center to fund them for 2 years. $100,000 out of A-tax for the Waterbury River boat ramp. Another $100,000 out for the Kershaw County Arts Center from the opera money. And then what I would like to do is challenge all of us who may have some nonprofit agencies that didn't receive or get as much as they requested to be thinking how you want to divvy up $48,000 $385. And if you need any additional information, I'm more than sure that Ms. Rita would text you those nonprofits and their request or email them to you. I'm going to stop right there, Madam Chair, and give my colleagues who serve on that committee with me an opportunity to speak if they like. Mr. Thomason, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say thank you to my colleagues. It was a lot of time, a very good learning experience being on the Finance Committee. I really appreciate staff's hard work.
Yes.
I know they spent many, many hours preparing a budget that I'm happy to support and have been a part of. One that has no fees, no tax increases, one that takes care of our first responders, fixes some infrastructure needs and those infrastructure needs, there's some that's a Band-Aid, but we're still waiting for the jail to come back. The study on that to see a cost, and we have some courthouse stuff, but at least we've gotten up to par and allocated some money. We're able to take care of our employees as well, and also, some citizens' quality of life. So I think it's a very, very good budget. I'm happy to support it.
Councilman Schumate?
Just echo what Councilman Tomlinson said. I mean, I know we've spent 50-plus hours meeting over this, and I think this is the result of a very deliberative effort. It certainly isn't perfect. Particularly one of the challenging things for this budget, as the Finance Committee knows very well, is that funding sources for one-time expenditures are one thing, but the funding sources available for recurring was a very different story. And so there some very difficult decisions had to be made because, as everyone knows, if you use a non-reoccurring dollar to buy something that's a recurring cost, then you're going to have to find that dollar every year from here on out. So I appreciate Councilman Tucker's leadership on the Finance Committee. It was very, very helpful. That's all I have.
Madam Chair, at this time, we would take any comments or questions.
Okay. Can you provide me with the balance of the ARPA fund and the A-tax that's available to make these recommendations?
Okay, the ARPA funds was a total of, let me get my numbers, $6,366,395. And then we had $110,000 in A-tax. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with those numbers, but they are correct. I just didn't have them right in front of me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
On the $48,385 from contributing agencies, I would like council members to reach out to their districts and get to know some of the agencies out there. I personally would like to support anything that supports our youth in Kershaw County. That is very important to me, and they're the future of this county. Anything that can help them and develop them, summer camps, summer projects, schools, any extracurricular activities that would keep kids off the streets or anything keeping them from being bored, that would be helpful. And thank you for the recommendations. The $6.3 million, that's after the radios, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
With 3.4.
It's also after the radios, and then a certain amount of ARPA was used as carryover to help balance this budget so that we could do, like, for example, give employees cost of living increases
Okay.
and some things like that. So there's a number around $400,000-ish that went to that. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And are we just talking about ARPA and A-tax right now?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, okay. Okay, nope, I'm good, thank you.
Well, I really don't know where to start. We talk about we have $6 million left over. The sheriff didn't even get a fourth of what he asked for in capital this year. EMS still needs an ambulance, a station. We have a jail that has to be the number one priority. Has to be. It's falling in. And our administrator's done the best he can do, trying to stay out of the politics of this county council to give 500,000 for just some simple repairs.
600.
For some simple repairs. I'm telling you, folks, $3 to $4 million would go a long ways on fixing that jail up. And I would dare say the sheriff would have to agree with that. The jail is a top priority, but it bothers me. And we talk about there's no fees and no tax increase. We could do some fees. I mean, we can get creative and do fees, because fees are nothing but a tax in disguise, and a fee is nothing but something that goes around a tax. But when you talk about millage, I don't think, Mr. DeBose, maybe you're the person to ask for this, I don't think we have the capability to raise any millage much of anything this year, do we? Based on what council did last year.
I can let Mr. Templer speak to that, but my understanding is it is very close or capped, is my understanding.
We do have some capacity just because of, with inflation and different things happening with the economy and the value of our mill. So there certainly is millage capacity, but.
How much?
If I'm not mistaken, we could.
One?
No, more than that.
Probably 10.
Right. It's
Lord,
huge.
well, I sure hope y'all don't go down that road.
No.
But listen,
Just roughly 10.
Exactly, but let me just say this. I do appreciate the Finance Committee's hard work. I know they're dedicated to what they're doing. I just absolutely disagree with this wholeheartedly. When I'm looking at that man back there, the number one law enforcement agency in the county, couldn't even get, he got a fourth sheriff. Well, you're going to see it soon. Okay. And of course, Mr. Templer, you've done a great job on balancing the budget. We've got a balanced budget. I just think we're missing a great opportunity to get ahead of some of our capital, but we're going to put it all into the ball fields. I don't mind putting some of it in there, guys, but my gosh, $6 million when we got all these other needs in the county. This economy's hurting. People are hurting.
Mr. Templer,
I will yield the floor to you. Go ahead.
thank you. I just wanted to ask Mr. Templer a quick question. I know that we still haven't received the jail study, or even done one really on the courthouse yet. What do you anticipate the total cost and just a roundabout figure of renovating the current jail and the expansion of the jail?
Expansion, I don't know how you get away from, a $20 million price tag with current, and that's just throwing something out there.
Yeah, just a roundabout.
Just because of, the complexity of that facility, the things going in there, and just having received some numbers back. I mean, an EMS station is $2 million at this point, and this is so much more complex. And then the fixtures that have to go in there. So I just throw out 20 million, and then there's some other concerns. We're putting 600,000 towards the current facility, so we're not talking about
You said 20 million for a new facility.
a new.
We're not talking about a new facility.
Right.
I'm not.
Right. And so if we're going to expand, I say new facility.
Yeah, renovating and expansion.
I'm sorry. I see what you're saying, Mr. Jones. An expansion, so we would not want to expand on a building that is falling apart. So 600,000 is going to take us. It will give us some room there, but there's plumbing issues. I have some concerns having toured it with the moisture that's coming through, with the inability for the paint to stay on the walls because the moisture is wicking through the bricks and stuff. So there's a couple issues over there. So I think to truly address the jail is going to take a significant amount of money. And
Let me pick my time back up here. Mr. Chairman, I can tell you right now, $5 million would go a long ways in that jail to bring it up to par. I know that.
The current facility.
Current facility,
yes.
$5 million would do a lot.
It sure would.
It's no question about it. We can skirt around that all we want, but it's just a fact. But anyway, that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Tucker.
Well, I just want to make sure everyone understands the process that we're doing. These are recommendations. So if there's anything that you disagree that the finance company has recommended, formulate your motion. Remember what we have to do. We have to make a motion, identify the funding, and then we identify the expenditure. You can propose anything back to this council as long as you get it into the agenda package on the 23rd. So all of your great ideas and things you want to fix, you can put those into motion on the 23rd.
Oh, I plan to.
Okay. I just want to make that clear, so I don't want nobody to think that the Finance Committee has anybody hampered from making their motions and their decisions on the $6,476,395,095.
Madam Chair, may I? And let me say this, Mr. Tucker. Y'all have worked very hard, and I appreciate that. You have different priorities than I do. It's all about priorities. That's all it is.
I have no problem with.
And I know the process, and I promise you, I will make my.
Well, I'm stating it for everyone. I'm not stating it at you. I'm stating so everyone can have knowledge what the process is. Number one, this is not directed towards you. And number two, we all got different priorities. I didn't agree 100% with the two colleagues that sat with me on everything. But guess what we had? We had a conversation. And this was the best conclusion the three of us came to present back to council. So, you know, we're not up here like we the three-headed monsters all agreeing in kumbaya. This was best product we thought that we were charged with to do.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker, and thank you to the Finance Committee. I have been to your meetings. You have worked diligently. I had to look at some figures, so I have a couple more questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Templer or Mr. Tucker, when does the A tax need to be allocated or spent? This $110,000. Is there a date, or do we have a state law that mandates we do something with it right now?
To my knowledge, no, it's a carryover.
Right.
Okay.
But I will certainly get back with you on that. But
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, Mr. Tucker.
The other A-tax money, because there is more A-tax money, will come, and I'm just saying it just for public knowledge, that will come from the A-tax committee recommendations. So I don't want them to put those two together, which there is a timeline on, and it must go into this budget cycle for 23-24.
Okay.
Okay?
So, Mr. Templer, I just need a breakdown of last year's A-tax, because the A-tax committee last year made a recommendation to council, and I want to know if that was fulfilled, if those entities got that money, and how there's 110 left carried over. What was it not spent on, or was there always 110 allocated separately? Next question. Okay, we have the FY24 approved capital projects. Mr. Templer, can you provide everyone on council with a list of the unapproved capital projects?
yes.
That were requested but not funded.
Okay.
All right. The Watery River Boat Ramp, $100,000. Mr. Tucker, can you explain to me where this number come from? Because my understanding is we don't have the study back, and this council already approved $20,000 or 10% of the project to pay for. So why do we need an extra $100,000 on top of what county council already approved to spend on that?
Well, first and foremost, it was in a written request from one of our colleague council members that we look for this 110, that he actually emailed us,
Okay,
contacted
who
us
was
and
the
talked
council
about,
member?
Mr. Councilman Russell Brazel.
Okay.
It came back with a second request on funding for the $500,000 that we were not able to do, and move the boat ramp to our property if that was doable, as the administrator looked at that, but we just did not have the funds to do that. Where it lies now, that $100,000 was supposed to be our part of good seed money to encourage the state General Assembly to fund the boat ramp to the max of their capabilities. Now, none of that has passed for a final vote, but there is some good things in the works from my understanding. I don't want to state them because I did not talk to our delegation, so I don't want to repeat hearsay, but I'm very hopeful and optimistic that this $100,000 we have set to the side now will not be needed, and we can redirect it before we take third reading, and that the state will completely fund it.
Okay.
Okay.
Did the written request come with any documentation, any bids, any?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Here's my concern. This council took up this issue. We have a study going on. We committed to paying a certain amount towards it. And this council, I guess, this council's authority and decision-making process was completely circumvented for the State House. And there's $100,000 just an arbitrary number that someone threw out. There's no project to see how much it's going to be. So I guess I just don't appreciate this council taking up an issue, voting to spend money on it, and voting to contribute 10% of the final project, whatever that might be, or $20,000, and then a council member just sending another request to the Finance Committee because someone at the State House said to do so. So I just have to put that out there. I can't support another $100,000 for the Wateree River boat ramp simply because this council already stated what they're going to put towards it, and we don't have anything in front of us. So what if the project is $100,000? So Kershaw County is going to pay for it all?
Well,
Just a hypothetical question.
Yeah,
I just want to know where the number came from.
if it is just 100,000, then I think we should jump on that because that would be a darn good deal.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
you know, we did
Mr. Jones.
$60,000 on a study with boat ramp that's still out there. We did vote on $20,000. Am I correct, Madam Chair?
We did, and we spent several $1,000s removing the old dock. It's not a ramp, it's a dock.
Yeah, I cannot accept the 100,000. I mean, we're throwing money around, and there's just really no documentation to show where, when, why, how. You know, I guess there's some good plans in our heads.
I just want to know the expert that said it's going to cost $600,000.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
So looking at the State House is currently going on, and there were conversations, I think, that other council members, including Mr. Brazel, had with our representative regarding a line item in the budget, which should be approved prior to our third reading of our budget. And that line item is a match for funds based upon us putting this number in there. If we get the budget back from the state level that line item was not able to be approved or in there, the line item can be reutilized. This is based upon conversations with a person that Kershaw County elected to represent them at the state, and I felt comfortable making that leap to have that matching 100,000. And if it doesn't work out, we can take that 100,000, put it back in, and utilize it for something else.
Okay. Thank you. If this council wanted to allocate $100,000, why didn't it get approved for $100,000 when we took this issue up?
For me, I was not involved in the request when it came up on the agenda. You actually came to me and spoke to me why it should be that. And at that time, that's the information I had, not having the other side on what exactly was the intent on how we're going to fund this boat ramp. And plus that was supposed to be generating a letter of commitment so they could start the process over there. I don't even know, did the letter ever go out to the delegation saying, we got
No,
this?
because no, it didn't.
Okay.
And it wasn't needed because it's in the budget without the letter.
Well, circumvent is a strong word because I don't circumvent people.
No, this isn't.
Oh, okay.
It does nothing to the Finance Committee.
Okay. I want to make that clear.
Nothing to the Finance Committee. Kershaw County decided that we were going to spend $20,000 or 10% of the project. We're waiting on the project cost. And members of this council and the State House had conversations without me and determined that that wasn't enough money. And I want to know how they determined it wasn't enough money. That's all. I just want to know the documentation used to know that it's going to be a $600,000 project, because that's very expensive.
And I don't know if it's going to be 400 or 600. I've heard between 400 and 5. So, I don't know what the true or real figure is at this current time.
Okay,
But
thank
we're
you.
committing $100,000. I mean, at least that's the recommendation.
Well, I know it's more than that. I do know that for a fact.
Second question, Mr. Templer, if you can give us all the dates again on the ARPA funds. When does it need to be allocated and when does it need to be spent?
Committed by 24, spent by 25.
Okay, so we don't need to take up ARPA or ATAX voting at this time. So we have time on all this. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Tucker, the Finance Committee was doing it in conjunction with the budget because it was just convenient time.
Well, we wanted to redirect the funds from opera because right now they're committed to sewer was what's left. And so to figure out what all our capital and what all our opportunities to fund the best budget, we also took into the opera and the ATAX funds that was available.
If I may, and also you did have a vote and a motion and a vote made in these chambers that sent that request back to the Finance Committee, didn't they?
Which request?
Talking about the ARPA funds.
You talking about for the radios?
No, for the $6 million match.
Yes, we had a request. We had a written request from council members and a vote in asking about the ARPA funds for the $6 million for the recreation.
Yeah, I've got all that. I'm going to explain to y'all what you did when I get in my council brief. Well, not you. You actually voted against it, but I'm going to talk about that vote just a little bit.
Well, not right now in your council.
But it's germane to this because it's all intermingled.
Well, we're talking about finances now, so let's stay on course.
Mr. Tucker, again, I appreciate this work. Thank you. From my perspective, there is, for the chassis, there's a bid, there's documentation, we know how much that's going to be. The community center, we have a very detailed budget of how much that center needs to conduct its services. The Kershaw County Arts Center, we know how much the ADA compliance is going to cost, and we know the repairs that need to happen. And the contributing agencies, if someone wants to contact us that they need a specific amount, they'll need justification and something to show what they're going to use it. So I guess I take issue with the boat ramp and the recreation because we don't know how much those things are going to cost.
Okay, let me speak a little bit, and then I want to
But
get...
it's not an issue with anyone personally. It's just in general, we have no idea how much those projects will cost.
Yes, ma'am, and I don't want to get into the weeds just on recreation tonight. There's going to be no money spent until we get answers to those questions. That's what I want to state. There is not a dime today or May 23rd that's going to be spent on anything. The funds are being reallocated, and then we're going to get bids back because there's certain things that certain people believe in recreation is going to happen, and the bids is going to show you can't do it. You
Right.
physically can't do it with the monies we have. So we're working on what are other options that can best suit the citizens of Kershaw County, and we can still do some recreation. And that doesn't alleviate that maybe we can't do the 12 or 10 million project. We don't know that at this time. That's what we're asking, to allow us to get that information, and then we can make a more informed decision on what that looks like.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it can also be reallocated. So right now it's in sewer. This is the recommendation of how it should be allocated, but nothing prevents this council from reallocating it again all the way until January 1st, 2024.
Yes, ma'am. Or you spend it.
Yes. Okay. Right. Any other topics of discussion? Okay. Finance Committee report recommendation on annual budget.
Yes, ma'am. Woo-woo. So I think it's been stated already, and I'll get Mr. Templer's assistance as we go down. I just want to reiterate that no fee increase, no tax increase, no millage increase. Not that we did not have the capability to do that, We did, and that number is fairly large, Mr. Jones, compared to what we've had in the past, just because CIP, you know. We grew better than I thought, but it was this committee's and staff's decision that, you know, times are not good for everyone and that we're still in tough times. So we did the best we could with the little growth we had from the millage increase in value. And we pulled from different categories or different areas where we had a little something stashed back to make this budget work. And I commend Mr. Templer and his staff, Ms. Lauren and Mr. Gerald back there for, and the finance team, for putting their head down and just doing the hard grunt work, making tough decisions, because these decisions aren't easy. And you're gonna make some people happy and you're gonna make some people mad, because it's just not enough funds to get everything what everybody wants. But let me say this right here. No one should be angry at staff or council, because last year was a Christmas year.
A blindsiding year.
And I would, I have the floor, Mr. Jones.
I apologize.
Thank
Jones,
you.
he does have the floor.
I apologize.
So I'm going to hang my hat back on that it was a very good year for departments, all of the departments and employees. So you can't do that every year. That is not the norm. We're doing the best we can. And I'm going to say, like Councilman Thomason said, I am very proud of this budget, and I'm very proud of it because it has no increases in fees, taxes, or anything else. Madam Chair, I'm going to ask Mr. Templer if he wants to go over the numbers or if we want to go up by department. But this is what you actually read last month in title only.
Yes, thank you. And
You're welcome.
thank you for getting it done, Mr. Templer, so that it's available to the public. Do we have a page that shows total?
You mean like general fund total? First page, the 30 million?
I'm also interested in the capital in your budget, Mr. Templer.
Sure. Y'all have a copy of the capital that we have, that long sheet with all the capital projects. I had to give my copy away.
Tiny print.
Yes, sir.
Hard to read.
Mr. Templer, I can share. You can have one too.
You want yours back, Mr. Tucker?
No. We're good. Let the attorney read.
So I'll just start with capital. To go over these items, there were a lot of asks, but only just a handful were funded, and that's nothing different this year than it's ever been in any other year. We typically will always have $3 or $4 more million in requests than available funding. So a process of understanding what has historically been asked for, needs change from year to year. Also balancing these requests with what was council's will, if you will, at the council retreat. So balancing goals and objectives with funding requests here was something we were pretty keen on doing. So a few of these were just operational, just going down the list. Time Clock Plus is going to allow us to kind of come into the 21st century with time management, time clock, it's clocking employees in. Currently, we're doing this all on paper, which is requiring 2 full-time employees to just engage in a never-ending process. As soon as checks are cut, they are right back at that following Monday, tallying employee hours for over 430 employees, so that it's just very inefficient use of time. This project will allow us to use 1 employee to do this process. door controller system, government center, was just increasing security here, where we're going to go to badge scans as opposed to the punch buttons. We can deactivate employee badges if they are terminated or no longer work here. So from a security standpoint, it is much more safe. Server upgrades, IT continues to be a need. It always will be, just in the type of reality we're in with technology becoming more and more prominent in our day-to-day operations. $65,000, that was trimmed down from the original $200,000 ask. And these are for server replacements, which is just a crucial part of what we do. There's a vehicle for just, again, keeping up with fleet needs, older vehicles, poor fuel mileage, and maintenance costs continue to rise on older vehicles. So we do a pretty good job with our fleet. HVAC system at the detention center, looking at that. This is also, this is for maintenance. This is from building maintenance, so this is separate from the $600,000 that we have allotted for the jail over there. But we're always going to be replacing air conditioners. We just have so many. I have yet to see a year where we're not replacing a roof unit. Exterior handicap lift over at the courthouse, because of the layout of that courthouse, everything is upstairs. So we have the handicap elevator over there that has been very problematic over the years, so we look to replace that. Another air conditioner replacement here in this building. Courthouse renovations, there's not really much we can do there beyond an expansion, but trying to get people in more comfortable work areas. Some of them are working in just cramped spaces, and doing some rearranging over there to get some more life out of that building. It has been important. So some painting and things like that. I think y'all had toured the courthouse at one point, so we're trying to address a lot of the asks from there. And this has been something that's been on the budget request for probably 3 years now. It should have been funded when we bought the voter registration building, but that building took up all of the, I think it was $800,000 set aside, but that building took up a vast majority of that funding, so the courthouse got left out. Voter registration renovations, continuing to make that building more useful on the front side. There's, because of the mandates with the security of the voting machines, we're always going to be pressed into new unfunded mandates on the security of our voting system in Kershaw County. A new truck, again, keeping up with the fleets. New building upfit for the Public Works building. We're getting close to, should have that building complete in the fall. So that will be upfitted for the new workspaces for Public Works, solid waste, our engineer, and some other support staff. Courthouse security was another item that was high on the goals and objectives for council. So short of putting more people over there, the weapons detector seemed like a logical ask. So I know the system over there, the metal detector over there has got some time on it, and this just kind of brings us up current. Some more vehicles for the coroner, 126. There's one vehicle there. We have 4 Tahoes for the sheriff's office. Again, keeping up with our fleet needs. He had asked for 15, but just this year there's 4 were available for us in what our capacity to purchase it allowed us to do.
That's all the money we had.
Yes, sir. And so we have X amount of dollars assigned to enterprise, which is not, it's enterprise leasing. So our lease capacity is pretty close this year. Other vehicles needed to be replaced throughout, so 4 vehicles there we thought would be sufficient based on our available funding, just kind of spreading the money around to all departments. Detention center upfit, $600,000, and I think we've spoke a good bit about that. There's plumbing, electrical, painting, HVAC. There's some technology upgrades there, some locks. I think we may be able to address the washer and dryer issue over there as well.
Did you say some locks?
Locks, just upgrading locks. So we have sufficient locks, but there's more updated locks that are wired in. So I'm drawing a blank on the name of them, but we've been trying to implement those every budget year just to keep up to date. Animal care facility, as you know, we're in conversation with the Kershaw County Humane Society. They offer us the ability to house dogs and cats, but as you know, this is a heavy equine county. There's livestock needs we have, so we've been looking at this for some years now as an area to house emaciated horses or large animals. We get cows, we get goats, pigs, all kinds of things that are just beyond the capability of what the animal shelter can handle for us. So as our farms are turning over hands, in Kershaw County, they're being sold to new owners. Our relationships and our abilities to store animals throughout the county are kind of going away, so we're just going to have to take this back in-house and look at that. High throughput scanner over a voter registration. Again, it's just keeping up with the unfunded mandates for our election equipment and process. There's another vehicle for Parks and Rec, 2 finish mowers, and we go through mowers a lot because we're cutting grass all summer. It seems like probably 6 days a week we're cutting grass. So airport, this is a grant refund. It's something we don't normally do, but the FAA deemed us to be ineligible for this funding from a previous grant from the airport drainage project from some years ago. So they, after many conversations and pleas to the FAA, they still want this $236,744 returned to them before they will consider us for any other grants. We have a grant that we applied for runway lighting. Just Friday, we made the deadline, but they said they would not even consider that without having this funding returned. So this is just a sad reality. Out of a $6 million project with our grant match, that was $250,000, I think, back in 2018. We're having to return this amount of money. So the appeals process didn't work out in our favor. More vehicles. You see a white goods replacement vehicle here. This is allowing us to get washers and refrigerators and things like that out of our convenience centers. We're about at the end of a safe life span of the current vehicle, so this is a dire need. Some crew cabs out there for public works, a ditching tool, some mulching equipment, and the bridge study that we heard one gentleman come up and talk about. So this was a direct result of some public comments and some concerns about our bridges. The last time we did any bridge study was in 2013, so we had some bridges that were rated very low. And some that bridge that gentleman had talked about was a 3 at the time, and it is now a 0 and had to be closed. So this is a very important piece. We've got a lot of bridges you wouldn't even know they're there. They seem to be made out of old railroad ties or something, so it's just not a very robust material. Capital plan for $514,000. This kind of seems like an arbitrary number, but it's going to allow us. It's a remainder to, oftentimes throughout the budget process, we have quotes, but prices increase, and this will allow us flexibility to not have to skip on model year vehicles and any kind of other adjustments that come midstream, where manufacturers or retailers have given us a price. It's a quote. It was good for 30 days or whatever, and then that quote goes. That price is no longer any good. And over the years, we have missed out on equipment at lower prices because we had to go and instead of 2 roll-off vehicles out at solid waste, we had to just opt for 1 because we just didn't have the money. And we're talking like maybe $8,000.
So the $500,000, where are you going to keep that?
That will stay right here in the capital plan, and anything that comes out will be a transfer. It can only go to capital, so it can't go anywhere else. And any other number that exceeds my ability would certainly come before council. So,
Well, the ditch digger, those things, that's good stuff.
Yep.
That's good stuff, Danny. I'm just sorry you don't have enough money to get more of it, because you are running short on some things when it comes to maintaining the amount of roads that we have to cover in this county. We can't keep up with it.
yes, sir.
We haven't had the money to get the equipment.
So with our capital reserves, we were $3,099,999.04, and this basically takes up every dime of that. So again, with council's goals and objectives and priorities in mind, the history that I've had here at the county with asks and just operational needs, our capacity for leasing and all these other factors, these are the items I have chose to fund for the capital request for fiscal year 23-24. I'll be glad to answer any questions on the capital side.
Thank you, Mr. Templer, and I know you'll get us a list so that we can compare to the unfunded. Just a quick comment, I would like my colleagues to not forget about the detention center employees. So the courthouse renovations and those employees being overlooked for a while, that is absolutely true. They have a place to go. The detention center employees don't have a place that we can move them, but we need to be thinking about them and keeping them in mind. Again, there's 3 employees over there working in a closet, and then the entire admin section of the detention center works in a very small place too. So their uplift does not include any kind of uplift for their offices. So just keep that in mind moving forward.
For what? Repeat that?
For the employee offices. But thank you, and thank you for using our retreat and our goals to prioritize your list.
Yes. And just a quick word on general fund. It's you have it in front of you. It's just a slew of numbers. Everything is. I'm proud of the work that staff did on this budget. It was tough. We did not certainly want to come to council and ask for any kind of increase, knowing what last year was. I felt it was my job to stay well within the revenue streams we have. The first order of business was to go through this budget as it was being the current budget and look at the areas that were in the red for any reason, so fuel and things of that nature. Yes.
I have a question. When you were going through your capital projects, you were dealing with just strictly monies you had.
Correct.
Did you ever consider trying to talk to the Finance Committee about some of the ARPA funds that would qualify for a lot of that capital?
No, sir.
Why?
Beyond the fact that, because at the time, ARPA money wasn't in play because and it currently is, the majority of it is committed to sewer.
Well, may I say something?
Yes, sir.
Then then it hasn't been in play at all, because it's always been that way. Ever since we did the grants that we did, I think a couple $1 million on a couple of grants, then basically, I hear what you're saying, it's not in play. I don't buy it because the money was there. And I was just wondering, and everybody else was saying what they wanted to spend it for.
So now, with one correction, the interest from ARPA was drawn, but the ARPA itself, that number sitting there was not in my mind in play.
It wasn't in play with what you had to work with.
Right. I was just using.
But you knew it was going to go for ball fields.
I didn't know where it was going to go, so with the super unknown, it wouldn't have been prudent to use any other funding streams than reoccurring funding streams from tax, fees, and other things.
Well, I want to apologize to you, Danny. Go ahead.
Mr. Templer, I understand why you didn't consider it, but I would like your recommendation. If the ARPA funds were available to you for capital projects,
Yes.
what you would spend them on. As the administrator of this county, I would like to know that.
Okay.
For my own knowledge and moving forward into this budget, if you did have that available, how would you recommend we spend it?
And I want a copy of that.
Sure.
Within 3 days.
Sure.
Thank you.
So just going back to the general fund, and at points where I was concerned whether there would be a hiring freeze, no cost of living adjustments and things of that nature, but just as the budget process went through its iterations, we were able to get more numbers and a little more room to fund things. So we have a 3% cost of living adjustment for all employees across the board. And we are able to fund everything we have, all of our current obligations. We're also able to fund the increases, the unforeseen increases just due to inflation, due to services, the increase in services, for all departments. Some departments grew, but it was not due to anything other than things out of their control. With a particular vendor may have increased their prices by 8% or something like that. So when you spread that across all of our departments, that number tends to add up. So it was important to address the reoccurring increases and take care of our employees, and just keep everything running. So keep the lights on and the doors open. So special revenue, EMS, fire, those department heads do a great job with taking care of their budget. Some of them have healthy reserves. Public Works is a new enterprise fund this year, so they have no reserves. They just became an enterprise fund this year, so they're in their infancy stage. But we look to grow their reserves and have them less dependent on the general fund budget and more independent as it relates to capital purchasing power and things of that nature. So all of the capital requests out of fire and some of the sewer, those were able to be funded by their individual budgets through.
But partially, not totally.
So a few of them have. So fire was, now if you consider ARPA, that would be partially with the radios and things like that. But they had been budgeting for radios over the years, so they had been on a robust replacement schedule. Would they have met the mark? Who knows? EMS, same. They've got some money sitting there for ambulances or an ambulance. And
how much do they have sitting there?
A little over 700,000.
And that's right now. That's at this moment, right, Gerald? But once you buy the ambulance and the chassis, that's going to go down because that money's going to come out of the ambulance.
Not the chassis money.
Not the chassis,
Not
but
the
the
chassis.
ambulance.
Yeah, the ambulance, okay.
I think 340,000
Sounds about right.
will come out for the ambulance.
You didn't have enough for 2 ambulances, did you?
No.
Thank you.
So again, living within the realm of reality of what you can fund, they made their decisions much like I did with the general fund budget. I defer to them. I trust in what the equipment they need. We discuss it throughout the budget process, and so they do a good job. So
They did. I
I'm
agree
proud
with
of
you.
their work.
Staff did a good job on their capitals.
So. there.
Any more
Okay,
questions,
sorry, I was
Madam
reading.
Chair?
Thank
That's
you.
okay. That's okay. I'm here.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I would
done.
just encourage the public to read this, get this off the website, and contact us if you have any concerns, questions, or ideas. Right, anything else from finance?
No, I think that concludes our recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Templer. Thank you, Mr. Tucker.
You're welcome.
All right. We will move on to council briefings. It's not on the agenda, but Mr. Tucker, we are starting with you.
Okay, this is going to be real long. No report.
Well, okay.
All right, Mr. Shoemake.
Just a couple little things. I went last week to the Elgin Town Council meeting. I've started to go to those every month to give them sort of an update on what council is doing, to kind of keep at least the municipality in my district up to date. On days where I'm not going to be able to make that meeting, I'm going to send a written little write-up. So again, we did that for the first time, and it was really helpful. In fact, they were able to bring some constituent issues they had gotten that were county-related that I was able to get to Mr. Templar and kind of get fixed right away. So that was a pretty helpful use of my time. Went to the Teacher of the Year Award ceremony 2 weeks ago, I think. So it was great to see all the educators and principals being recognized, particularly those from Stover and Blaney and Dobies. And two things I wasn't sure I was going to bring up, but just because I don't know how. Anyway, I recently learned this morning or this afternoon as the meeting started that Ms. Deborah Korinchek passed away. She is pretty sudden. For those of you who don't know Ms. Korinchek, her and her husband Joe live in Elgin. Their son Jason is a public defender here. Pillars of the community. Again, it's on Facebook now, so I felt like I could share it, but it's very sudden. Joe is a retired colonel and a retired DEA agent. I had the pleasure of knowing Joe as a high school student. When I was a federal prosecutor, I had the privilege of working with people who worked with Joe. And as a father of a baseball kid, I had the privilege of watching Joe cheer on his grandson and Deborah as well. In fact, one of my last visits when I was campaigning for this seat was to the Korinchek household just to see them. So my heart is with their family. So that's pretty sad. And the last thing is, for those of you who probably don't know, we had a young man from Camden pass away in a boating accident. Excuse me, sorry. Chase was 16. It's my son's age. I saw him play a few times. I didn't get a chance to really get to know him, but it's just tragic. He's a kid. Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Shoemake. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the County Council, and Mr. Shoemake, thank you for that. We all have felt that pain for the loss. Terrible, terrible tragedy. Okay, I've got a couple things I want to bring up. Have you got it up, Ryan? Okay. At the last County Council meeting, I had some dialogue with a couple of my council members, and I felt like I was questioned about whether or not I was telling the truth when I said a few things. Of course, I told my colleague, I said, not only am I telling the truth, I'll bring the documentation back and show you when I say you did what you did because it's in writing. And the documentation was requested by me at the May 9th, 2023 council meeting. Let's see, if you'll go to the first slide right here, I want you folks to look at the yellow. Okay, well, first off, this is members of County Council placing matters on the agenda. It says County Council members can place proposed matters on the agenda by providing the agenda item to the county administrator and clerk of court by 1 p.m. on Thursday preceding the next regular scheduled council meeting at which county council will vote on or take action. Now listen, on any matter coming before county council to get together with supporting documentation. That's our rule. We voted on it. Then next slide, Ryan. Yes, this is what we had on the agenda under new business, proposal for recreation revitalization. 4 words, that's it, nothing else. All right, next slide, please. A motion was made on those 4 words. Madam Chair, I move that Kershaw County agree to accept the donations from MUSC and the Health Resource District totaling $6 million, and that Kershaw County Council submit a proposal to the Finance Committee to budget and allocate a $6 million fund match using ARPA funds in the reallocation process, so that a total of $12 million will be available for a Kershaw County Recreation Revitalization Project. Okay, now the next slide. Okay, this says proposal for the Recreation Revitalization. Councilman Russell Brazel made a motion that Kershaw County accept the donations from MUSC and the Health Resource District for $6 million, and that the Kershaw County Council submit a proposal to the Finance Committee to budget and allocate a $6 million fund match using ARPA funds in the reallocation Finance Committee budget, and reallocate the $6 million for ARPA to be used. And of course, that would be a total of $12 million, which would be available to the Kershaw County Recreation Revitalization Project. Now, go to the next slide, please. Okay, this is a proposal to the Kershaw County Finance Committee from Councilman Russell Brazel and Councilman Danny Cato. Read at the top. This was not included in the agenda packet. It was not presented to the public or press. This document was given to council members after the motion was made during the meeting. Now, did anybody do anything illegal? Absolutely not. But what we did was we absolutely circumvented our own rules, disobeyed our own rules, and made a motion and made a $6 million match, $12 million turnaround decision with totally no information in the agenda whatsoever. And I've done something that no one else has ever done here before, and I had actually asked Madam Chair to let me go first, because I wanted to make sure my council members had every opportunity to say why I'm wrong, but I'm not wrong. I've got it documented.
What did I say?
Let me finish. All right, but anyway, when I say I've done something no one else has ever done, I've included in my council briefing documentation in the agenda packet, so everyone would know exactly what I plan to talk about in my council brief. March 14th meeting, members of council pushed for a vote to accept the $6 million from MUSC and Health Resource District and match it. When the chair put Woodward Park project on the agenda for April 11th, with commitment letters due April 6th and Finance Committee recommendation by April 6th, yet members of this council motioned to vote with, they made their motion to vote with no Finance Committee recommendation, no referral to the Finance Committee, or 14 days of waiting, no commitment letters from MUSC or Health Service District. Then the chair puts radios on the agenda for March 14th with supporting documentation. And this, I just couldn't believe. Council members asked her to take it off to give the Finance Committee time to make a recommendation in good faith. She did. She removed it from the agenda and referred it back to the Finance Committee. April the 18th, I don't know, I'm skipping around here. Rescheduled from April the 11th. The chair puts radios back on the agenda with documentation on the agenda by 1 o'clock, and her motion publicized. She actually even put her motion in there that she was going to make to county council. Now, council members claimed that she was not transparent. They were blindsided. They need to read their agenda packet when they get it. Council members asked, why can't you wait until May the 9th for the Finance Committee recommendation? Okay, so you guys didn't wait for the Finance Committee recommendation on Woodward Park, and y'all couldn't wait until the chair rescheduled the vote, yet you're saying she needs to wait for the recommendation on the radios. She needs to wait until the scheduled time to take the vote, council members completely ignored the chair's schedule in their regard to Woodward Park. She had town hall meetings set up. She had publicity things set up. But you know what, guys? It doesn't work like that. The people voted her to be the chair. The people trust her with these meetings and schedules. And when the chair schedule didn't fit some of the council members' agenda, they ignored the rules. Now, with the radios, you're going to call her out and make sure she follows the rules. The rules seem to differ from other council. The rules seem to be different for other council members, and it's like the chair is under scrutiny for following the proper protocol and procedure when council members have ignored, and they have ignored it, the same procedures and protocol 1 month earlier. Folks, it just doesn't make sense. And as the vice chairman, I am going to support this chair. But now let me make myself perfectly clear about this chair. I will also hold her accountable the same way I hold everyone else accountable and myself. And I was speaking to somebody today. The former clerk of the county council said she had never, pretty much in a statement, I'm going to probably make it sound better than what it is because it's talking about me. But she said Jimmy Jones never put anything on the agenda unless he had supporting documentation there. There's been no communication with the sheriff on the cut of his capital. Of course, I know with the ambulance service, with Gerald being overstaffed and everything, they've had that. They all probably know what's going on. But folks, it just bothers me. But I will hold her accountable just as much as I hold anybody else accountable as I hold myself accountable. Now, I'm going to end with this because I want to end on a good note. It's all about transparency. We need to stop governing by ambush. And I'll debate that with anybody who wants to tell me we haven't done that. The chair is transparent in all aspects, but a majority of council still wants to spend tax dollars and taxpayer money to ambush with no transparency, and that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened in our last budget process as well. And a majority of council's top priorities is travel baseball to benefit a few. We have so many needs in this county. And I'm not angry, guys. I mean, I'm actually excited about it. I get to share this with you tonight. This is my opinion, my thoughts. The top priority should be public safety and providing essential funding for law enforcement, ambulance service, and securing prisoners at the detention center. A majority of council hands out millions of dollars of taxpayers' money for travel baseball at the expense of public safety, and that is my opinion, and I'll stand by it and stick with it. I have one more thought. When the state rightfully provides hundreds of millions of dollars for big economic development projects, why is Kershaw County always second? You know, everybody who loses is second. You still lost, whether you're second, third, but every time I talk to somebody in another agency, another community, another county, they came in second too. Well, anyway, I can tell you, I have the answers. I know exactly why we're not moving forward with that. Project Scout, going to Blythewood, $2 billion, 4,000 jobs. The battery plant going to Florence, $810 million, 1,200 jobs. We lost out on a few more as well, but that was within the last 6 months. So having said that, guys, listen, we got to be transparent. We got to be forthcoming. I think there's a lot of excitement because there's a lot of support for baseball fields up here. And I'm going to tell you what, Sheriff, you may not get your cars, you may not get your stuff, but we're going to get some baseball fields. And to my folks in the ambulance service, you may not get all the ambulances you want. You may not get your $2 million new building that we could do with this, but we're going to get some baseball fields. And I'll tell you something else. The jail has got to be fixed. We got $6 million sitting there. And I am not going to vote for any bond to build a new jail. But anyway, having said that, I really want to say to my colleagues on council, I enjoy serving with you. I just don't agree with you. And I hope y'all have a very nice evening. And Madam Chair, members of council, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Tomlinson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm gonna get on a little bit lighter mood. Mr. Jones, thank you for all your thoroughness. I appreciate your report. I know that you love Kershaw County, and the county loves you, and you've spent a lot of years serving. And I do think every person up here on council loves Kershaw County and is doing it for the right reason. But thank you so much for how hard you always fight. And one thing I love about you is no matter if we disagree or not, you're always there and you were willing to talk to me and be my friend.
And always will be.
Yes, sir.
This
And I
has nothing to do
appreciate
with it, and I thank you for saying that.
Yes, sir. I'm going to be brief. Like we said before, I really enjoyed serving on the finance committee. It was an eye-opening experience, and I'll tell you what, I think we have the hardest working employees in Kershaw County, and I'm glad that we put together a good budget. I really, I'm glad to support every part of it that we have, and I appreciate for my fellow council members to look into it and make recommendations, because it was just 3 of us with staff, and we still have 4 other members that need to make recommendations, and I hope you spend the time and effort to do that. So thank you for everybody who came out today, and appreciate staff.
Thank you, Mr. Tomlinson. Mr. Cato.
I'll keep some of my comments to myself tonight because I think it'd probably be best for all involved, but I'm gonna stay on a lighter note myself. And we're gonna move forward in this county, and we're not gonna worry about the past. How about that? Because if we look at the past, that's part of the problem with this county. First and foremost, tonight I want to recognize a county baseball team. I want to recognize the North Central Knights. Their baseball team won the district championship yesterday, 4-2 over Woodland, and they'll be headed to the regional playoffs, to the lower state playoffs. So congratulations to the North Central Knights baseball team. I had a couple of things here from the town of Bethune, from Mayor Holly. She wanted me to bring up here tonight, and Thursday night at 6 p.m., May the 11th, they will be honoring law enforcement, since it is Police Respect, Honor, and Remembrance Week, and I think the sheriff's going to be there. And so that's going to start at 6 p.m., and the public is invited at the Bethune Recreational Center. So if anyone would like to attend that, that is happening this Thursday. And then the town of Bethune has a Kids in the Park Community Spring Fest coming up, and that is Saturday, May the 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and that's in the Bethune Memorial Park. There'll be food, games, music, treats, arts, and crafts. And if you want to put something up there, it says here you can reserve your spot, and I'll give you a number. It's 843-334-6238 if anybody's interested in that. So make plans to attend those activities in Bethune. I too would like to express my condolences to Chase's family. I have had an opportunity to hunt with that young man and his dad, and I know his dad and his mom, the Branham family, and such a tragic loss. And out of all I've seen in my career, young people's always the hardest to deal with, and I think the sheriff would agree with me on that if you've ever had to deal with that. And I could never imagine losing one of my children or grandchildren. So my condolences and my deepest sympathy and prayers go out to this family. But that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cato. All right. Also in the agenda packet, there is a letter from MUSC to the Health Service District of Kershaw County. So this is one of the commitment letters that I requested from Chairman Ogburn back in March, and it was sent to council. We got some requests to get some copies of it, so I decided to include it in the agenda packet just to let everybody know that that came in and we received it. Last weekend, our family went down to Patriots Landing, where the boat ramp. There were 52 trucks and trailers, so I assume there were 52 boats in the water at least, just at that landing. And I talked to people about what would be most beneficial down there. And not having the dock, the floating dock, has not stopped the people that want to be on the river. They're still going out on the river. They said it was helpful, but what they are really interested in is a second slip to accommodate the boats coming in and out. So that's something we'll look at. We're still waiting on the study to come back, and that will be part of our thought process when it comes back. All right, so I'm wearing a t-shirt tonight. I know that's kind of strange. I do have my dress on underneath, but I wanted to tell you about Unity in the Community. This is a group that Hank Kerfoot headed up, and also a kind of movement started by Brian Mays, starting the conversation. Those two have joined together, and they meet the second Tuesday of every month. It's for lunch. The location changes, and the purpose of the meeting is to have a conversation with someone that you have never met, or that you would not normally sit with, or that you would not normally have a conversation with. I went this afternoon, and it was awesome, and I got to meet some really great people. And I have to admit, when I got there, I migrated to the people I knew and sat down with them, and then we had to move around and eat with someone else. And I think it's really great for our community. So there's a lot of stuff that, even on this council, that unify us, children being one of those. So you get to talk to people and conversate with people that you normally wouldn't, and I think there's healing in that. We have such a polarizing political world right now, nationally, but we don't have to have that in Kershaw County. So if you'd like to get involved with starting a conversation or Unity in Community and some of the events they do, please reach out to me, Hank Kerfoot, or Brian Mays. I think it's really awesome for this community. This week, I want to acknowledge that it is National Correctional Officers Week. This council is going to recognize May 7th through the 13th, 2023, as Correctional Officers Week in Kershaw County. So our correctional officers are responsible for supervising offenders. They promote the safety of all of Kershaw County. They assess behavior, conduct. They're helping some of the offenders get their GEDs. They keep them healthy. One thing that Director Jones has implemented is that they get to go outside. Anyone at the Kershaw County Detention Center gets to go outside now. That hasn't been done in years. Correctional officers are a crucial part of a county-wide reentry initiative, and they play a critical role in preparing offenders for success and assimilation back into communities after release. So we don't have it's a temporary facility here in Kershaw County, okay? So we're not a prison. Offenders going there do come back into the community, and I want to recognize everything that they're doing for the offenders over there and for the jail. The morale at the detention center, I know this sounds strange, but it's really high amongst the people that work there. They're correctional officers. They love their jobs, and that's awesome. So just if you see anyone working at the detention center, please thank them and please recognize them. Director Jones, Deputy Director Workman, and Shanae Graham-Cawthon, just thank you for what you do. And this week is dedicated to you and your hard work and sometimes not so great conditions. The Kirkland Community Center is having May Fest on May 20th. This is the community center located up 97 at the old Baron DeKalb Elementary School. It's May 20th from 10 to 5 p.m. All right, next meeting, we will be May 23rd. We will be reading all the applicants that apply to be on the Health Service District of Kershaw County Board. There are 3 seats that term ends this June. So if you're interested in that, go to our website and fill out the application for boards and commissions. We'll read all the applicants' names on May 23rd, and then on June 13th, we'll take nominations for votes. Ms. Hannah is in the current process of doing the research to see which seat nominated which seat on their board, which seat from us, so we can see which seats need to be filled. There are 3 at-large seats, and then there's 6 that would be nominated from their respective district. And thank you, Mr. Shoemake and Mr. Cato, for bringing up the Newman family. So please, we have to always pray for our parents and youth, but Melissa Branham, Jean Branham, Shane Newman, and Amanda Shelton, please keep them in your prayers for their loss. And that's all I have. Mr. Templer?
No report.
Okay. Mr. DeBose?
No report.
All right, we're up to executive session. We do need an executive session tonight.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would move that we enter executive session to receive attorney-client privilege briefing on a pending or threatened legal claim.
Okay, motion to enter executive session on a pending or threatened legal claim. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Tomlinson, second. And any discussion? We need Mr. Templer, Mr. Blanchard, Mr. DeBose. Okay. No vote coming out of this executive session. We just need to receive legal information. All those in favor of entering executive session indicate by raising your hand. The vote is unanimous. We're in executive session.
Come on, executive session. One quick thing.
Mr. DeBose, can you give us a recap of executive session real quick?
Yes, ma'am. In executive session, a attorney-client privilege briefing was received on pending, threatened, or potential legal claim.
Thank you.
No
Is there-
decisions were
Madam
made, no
Chair.
votes were taken.
Thank you. Is there a motion to come out?
Motion to come out of executive session.
Okay, Mr. Tuck makes a motion, Mr. Shu makes seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor of coming out of executive session indicate by raising your hand. The vote is unanimous. We are out of executive session. And Ms. Hannah, if you can note for the record, Councilman Jones left at 9:16. All right, we are up to adjournment. Mr. Tucker,
Yes, ma'am.
I think you
Right
had
quick.
something before we could
Yes,
leave.
ma'am. My mother would be very disappointed in me. So I don't want to do that because she's the love of my life. To you and Miss Hannah and all who is watching, and Miss Reader, happy Mother's Day. That is coming up this weekend.
That's from both of us.
Yes, that's from both of us. That's
Three of us.
And I want to say one more thing before we go, because she is just too humble to do it, so I'm going to do it for her. So they had a special meeting at the State House today at the Senate, and our Madam Chair was recognized and honored for the women in leadership in Kershaw County by the Senate today. So I got the plaque since she wouldn't hold it up, so. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Mayor Drakeford, Mayor Emmons, and Mayor Hawley, and myself, and we're all mothers, so.
That's right.
Yes. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Tucker makes the motion, Mr. Cato seconds. Any discussion? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Oh, all those in favor of adjournment? Vote is unanimous. Thank you. Have a good evening. This
All right,
meeting is
thanks.
adjourned.